Hey guys, tonight we swirl through the origins of sleep and frozen desserts starting in the sweltering cradle of civilization. You stretch out, blink slowly, and feel the soft hum of evening settling around you. Imagine lying on a clay rooftop in ancient Persia, the stars freckling a navy black sky, and a faint breeze pushing back the weight of the desert heat. Somewhere far below, the whisper of water trickling through an aqueduct carries like a lullaby. And just as your eyes start to drift shut, someone hands you a chilled bowl of something sweet, sharp, and snowy. That's right, ice cream. In the desert. In the Bronze Age. How, why? And more importantly, who thought it was a good idea to pair frozen dairy and fermented dreams with the ever-elusive act of sleep? Tonight's story is about two things. You love sleep and snacks, and the wildly unglamorous, weirdly brilliant ways humans have chased both through time. We're talking nap rituals with ancient gods, bedtime bugs, underground ice vaults, and emperors who got brain freeze before it was cool. But don't get too cozy yet. Some parts of this story are warm, really warm, and you probably won't survive a Mesopotamian summer unless you're okay sleeping on a tile slab next to a sweating goat and a jar of fermenting barley. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where in the world you're drifting off from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You start in the Fertile Crescent roughly 7,000 years ago, where sleep is more of a gamble than a guarantee. There are no locks, no bug spray, and no reliable bedtime. Instead, you've got family members snoring 3 inches from your ear and a priest mumbling to Inanna 2 rooftops away. Sumerians. The people who gave us writing weren't exactly dreamers when it came to comfort. Your bed is probably a woven mat or a dirt platform with some bundled reeds if you're lucky. You might share your bedroom with extended family livestock or occasionally the visiting dead, since the Sumerians believed spirits came and went freely during sleep. Just imagine trying to drift off while your aunt insists your grandfather's ghost is standing over the stew pot. Still, even in this gritty, mosquito-heavy setting, sleep has weight. There are prayers you whisper to ward off nightmares, charms you wear against the ghosts of the night, and scribes who record the occasional dream like a text from the gods. Sumerian kings are known to wake up announcing dreams in which divine beings told them what to build or who to marry. You'd think a god could pick a better hour. The heat, though. Oh, the heat. Without windows or fans, you either sleep outside or not at all. Rooftop sleeping is the norm in summer. Entire families laying side by side under the open sky, wrapped in thin linen, if they're lucky, swatting at the night's buzzing population. The air smells like dust and dried date syrup. Your back sticks to everything. But wait, let's rewind just a bit and ask the important question. Where's the ice cream? Technically, it's nowhere near here yet, but the obsession with cold is already brewing. Somewhere to the east, in what will become Persia, desert engineers are playing with the elements. These guys are wizards with mud, brick and shadow. They're figuring out how to build yakchals, giant beehive-shaped ice houses that use passive cooling and deep pits to trap winter ice all year round. No electricity, no problem. Just angles airflow and a whole lot of thermal patience. Historians still argue whether these structures were purely for storing food or also used for making early sorbets. One theory is that snow collected in the mountains was mixed with grape must or fruit juice, creating the ancient version of a slushie. A frozen treat in 110-degree heat. You bet that went viral at least by 6th century BCE standards. And back in sleepy Mesopotamia, someone gets the bright idea to bring snow down from distant peaks. It melts, sure, but if you pack it right in woven baskets and ride fast enough, you've got a few hours of icy glory before you're just serving cold water with pulp. The idea that something could be both sweet and cold is like discovering magic. Your mouth cools, your brain tingles, and somewhere inside your body thinks it's safe enough to rest. This early pairing of cold and calm becomes a kind of bedtime luxury for the elite, even though most people are still just praying for a cool breeze and an uneventful night. One fringe theory suggests that people actually ate chilled treats before bed as a way to lower the internal fire. It sounds silly until you realize that for a society with zero air conditioning, your internal fire was a real concern. You're sweaty, cranky, dehydrated, and more likely to hallucinate than dream. A spoonful of snow-soaked dates might just keep you from losing it before sunrise. Of course, not everyone gets to sample these early desserts. If you're not royalty, you're probably licking the condensation off a ceramic jug and pretending it tastes like figs. But the concept, the dreamy, strange pairing of icy relief and nocturnal peace, has roots now. Literal, cold comfort. Meanwhile, back in your rooftop setup, you've got night sounds as your lullaby. The city doesn't sleep. There are clanging pots, soft animal bleats, the rhythmic splash of someone pulling water at the well. Somewhere a musician strums a harp. Somewhere else a baby cries. You've got one eye half open, waiting to feel that precious drift into nothingness. And if you're a priest or priestess, your sleep might not even be yours. You could be practicing incubation, sleeping in temples specifically to receive divine visions. You eat special herbs fast for a day, then lie down on sacred straw, hoping a god visits your dreams. Spoiler if they don't, you blame yourself. And if they do, congratulations! You're now in charge of interpreting whatever terrifying symbolism they dropped in your subconscious. Is that three-headed lion a prophecy? Or just last night's fermented barley kicking in? Sleep here is functional, spiritual, and barely private. It's also fragile. Bedtime is as much about survival as rest. You don't just tuck in. You perform, you protect, you prepare. And while the rest of the world still wrestles with the basics, beds, blankets, and bugs, the Persians are quietly chilling things, literally. Their yakchols with foot-thick walls and ice pits that stay frozen year-round become the foundation for something revolutionary, controlled coolness. They even build channels to direct breeze through the chamber's engineering drafts like it's no big deal. Your room still feels like a kiln. Persian royalty is dining on rosewater snowballs and slipping into slumber with chilled breath. Even now, historians debate whether these early frozen desserts were meant as food medicine or ritual. Maybe all three. What's clear is that this intersection, sleep and cold, is deeply, quietly human. It soothes, it seduces, it survives. And so do you, barely as the rooftop breeze finally settles. Somewhere in the darkness, a neighbor coughs. A donkey shifts its weight. And just before sleep claims you, you imagine it again, a small, perfect bowl of crushed ice and pomegranate syrup. Chilled, sweet, still. You wake with the sky already glowing a pale, peachy blur that spreads over mud brick rooftops like spilled milk. The clay beneath you is still warm from the previous day's sun. Your back stiff, your mouth dry. There's a scratchy reed mat imprint on your cheek, and someone's goat has wandered over in the night and now seems very invested in chewing your hair. Welcome back to ancient Mesopotamia. This is what sleep looked like for the average Sumerian. It was short, segmented, communal, and full of interruptions. There's no 8 hours and a dream journal here. You slept when you could, usually in 2 chunks, one right after sunset, and another in the hours before dawn. Historians still argue whether this first and second sleep model was instinctual or cultural, but in the ancient world, it makes a kind of sleepy sense. After all, you've got fires to stoke, gods to appease, and more mosquitoes than judgmental aunties. Nighttime wasn't always restful. It was a chance for thieves' spirits and weird neighbors to get creative, which meant sleep was something you dipped into like a shallow pool, not a deep ocean. And you never dipped alone. Privacy, not a thing. Your family likely slept in the same space, along with livestock visitors, and maybe a servant or two. And if you were a servant, you slept in shifts. The only exception was for the wealthy or priestly elite, who might have separate quarters, but even then separate was more of a curtain than a wall. The architecture didn't help. Most homes were built around a central courtyard, and rooms had little ventilation. The only way to keep cool was to sleep on the roof, often surrounded by the soft shuffle of neighbors doing the same. It's a bit like an open-air sleepover with more dust and occasional religious chanting. Speaking of which, the Sumerians didn't just sleep, they ritualized it. Before bed, it wasn't uncommon to recite a protective prayer or hang amulets near your sleeping space to ward off Lamashtu, a demoness who loved bothering pregnant women and babies in their sleep. There's even evidence of lullabies written in cuneiform soft chants, urging children to rest, to keep the monsters away, to not wet the mat. One surviving lullaby literally warns the child, "If you do not sleep, the demon will come." So yeah, comforting. But bedtime wasn't all curses and communal flatulence. Dreams played an important role in early Mesopotamian life. They weren't just night noise, they were messages. Kings and priests often made major decisions based on what they saw in dreams. There are tablets describing dreams where gods instructed leaders to build temples, wage war, or change the calendar. And if your dream didn't make sense, no worries. You'd take it to a temple interpreter, essentially an ancient dream therapist, who would decode your goat chasing a banana dream into something wildly dramatic, like you must marry your enemy's sister immediately, or the tigress will flood your kitchen. The line between dreaming and prophecy was thin. Temples even had special sleep chambers where people could practice dream incubation, hoping to receive divine visions. You fast chant lie on a clean mat and wait for the gods to slide into your subconscious. Think of it as the original lucid dreaming subreddit with higher stakes and worse bedding. But let's not forget the practical side of things. Sleep wasn't just spiritual, it was political. If you worked in agriculture, your sleep depended on seasonal rhythms. Harvest time. You're getting up before the sun and collapsing by nightfall. Festival week. You're up all night dancing, feasting, and regretting your choices. It's not unlike pulling an all-nighter and then pretending to be human at a morning Zoom meeting. Now, while your average Sumerian is groggily swatting flies and muttering half-hearted curses at shadow demons across the plateau, the Persians are doing something oddly refreshing. Picture this, a massive domed structure made entirely of clay and brick. Thick walls, an underground pit, a wind-catching vent at the top. This is a yakchal, and it's not just impressive, it's a miracle of ancient engineering. In the middle of a blistering desert, these early Persians figured out how to keep things cold. Snow from nearby mountains was hauled down, packed with straw, or insulated with desert sand, and stored in these structures all year long. And this wasn't just about preservation, it was about pleasure. There are tales of early Persian nobles sipping chilled drinks or spooning flavoured ices, likely made with grape, rosewater, or crushed dates. Were these treats the first ice creams? Not quite, but they're definitely in the same frosty family. Here's where it gets weirder. Some scholars think these icy desserts were part of a bedtime routine. Imagine cooling your core temperature before crawling onto a thick woolen mattress. Or maybe it was more psychological cold mouth, calm mind. It's not that far off from today's TikTok trend of eating a frozen grape to reduce anxiety. Ancient Persians were just doing it with more architectural flair. One fringe tidbit even suggests that certain Persian rituals involved offering icy sweets to the gods during the cooler evening hours, perhaps in exchange for restful dreams or safe journeys through the dream world. Historians still argue whether this was symbolic or just a way to beat the heat in style. Either way, frozen offerings weren't just a flex, they were a prayer. Now back in Sumer, someone finally figured out that sprinkling crushed herbs on your mat helped repel insects. It didn't stop the rats, but baby steps. The connection between scent and sleep begins here. Lavender-like plants, myrrh, and cedar oils were often burned before bed. Not only did the smoke deter bugs, but it also created a hazy, relaxing environment. ASMR, but make it Bronze Age. As you drift off again, this time indoors in winter curled next to a fire pit, you realize how cyclical sleep is. No matter the century, the country, or the language, the basics remain. Quiet, darkness, a sense of safety, and maybe something a little sweet to tip you over the edge. But here's the twist. Most of the world still doesn't know what the Persians are up to. Their yak chows and frosty creations are quietly revolutionary, but only for a select few. Most people. They're still chasing shade and praying their dreams don't involve fire serpents or a visit from a cranky deity. As morning spreads across the marshes and temples, and vendors start shouting about fish and lentils, you rise groggy but slightly better rested. You splash cold water on your face from a clay jug, chew a date, and wonder just for a second what it would be like to taste something cold at the end of a night. You'll have to wait a few centuries, but it's coming, and when it does, you won't just taste it, you'll feel it all the way into your dreams. By now, you've had enough sleep in the ancient world to know it's more of a gamble than a guarantee. You're stiff, sticky, and constantly adjusting to the rhythms of communal living. But tonight, your dream life is about to take a sharp turn north and east, where the ancient Persians are ramping things up with the kind of precision that makes your straw mat feel like a pile of wet laundry. You're headed to the Achaemenid Empire, roughly 550 BCE, where sleep, cold, and status all get wrapped into one glorious icy package. The Persians at this point are living large. Think golden palaces, immortal armies, and terraces designed so that flowers bloom exactly when they're supposed to. These people don't just build, they engineer existence. Their capital Persepolis is carved into a mountain like a fever dream of geometry and luxury. Everything is intentional, from the way the wind moves through the walls to the way moonlight falls on the reflecting pools. And yes, there's ice here. Lots of it. Remember those yak chows we talked about? They're now full-blown operations, and they're not just storing snow for the odd mid-afternoon pomegranate slush. By the time you walk past one in the late evening, there's a system. Ice is packed into deep-shaded pits lined with insulating materials. Water channels bring runoff to nearby gardens. Everything is balanced. Even the sun feels like it's been asked to behave. Now imagine just before bedtime you're handed a bowl. It's wide and low-carved from alabaster. Inside, there's a scoop of shaved ice, soaked in saffron syrup and rosewater. The smell alone makes your eyelids drop a little. The sweetness coats your tongue, but the chill, oh, the chill, makes your breath hitch. And for one perfect moment, the heat that's lived in your bones all day cracks and slips away. Historians still argue whether this kind of evening treat was an elite-only pleasure, or something that trickled down into broader society during festivals or temple offerings. Some even suggest it was medicinal, offered to soothe fevers or calm the body after exertion. But one tablet fragment translated with a lot of guesswork seems to describe a priest mixing herbs, honey, and chilled water from the mountain. Ritual or refreshment. No one agrees, but either way, it was powerful, because the cold did something deeper than taste. It told your body you are safe now. You may rest. This was no small thing. In ancient Persia, sleep was seen not just as bodily necessity, but as a state of trust. A well-run city meant you could let your guard down. Peaceful slumber was both a political brag and a spiritual offering. Kings were judged not just by conquests, but by whether their people could sleep through the night without hearing swords in the street. And here's where the story gets stranger. Some Persian texts describe dream chambers reserved for nobles. These weren't your average bedrooms. They were cool, dark, herb-scented spaces designed specifically to induce rest. The floors were laid with smooth stone. The walls were thick. And in the center of each room sat a shallow basin of ice or cold water, not for drinking, but for cooling the air. One fringe theory suggests these rooms were designed to mimic mountain conditions, where the Zoroastrian gods were believed to dwell. If you couldn't climb the mountain, you brought the mountain to bed. Cold air, sacred dreams. It's a vibe. Zoroastrianism. The dominant faith of the empire played an intricate role in shaping sleep culture. The faith emphasized the duality of light and dark, good and evil, order and chaos. Dreams were seen as contested ground between these forces. A good dream wasn't just pleasant, it was a sign of alignment with truth and purity. A nightmare. Possible evidence that your soul was out of sync. So it's no surprise that people began tailoring their nights to maximize dream quality. Priests advised avoiding heavy food at night. Others burned specific woods to purify the air. Sleep became a ritual, not just a biological function, but a moral one. You'd wash, you'd pray, you'd place tokens of family or ancestors beside your mat. Then just before lying down, if you were truly fortunate, you'd be offered something cold and sweet to ease your transition. A spoonful of frozen milk steeped with jasmine. A sip of chilled barley water. It wasn't ice cream yet, but it was on the road. Meanwhile, the yakchals themselves become symbols, not just of ingenuity, but of dominion over chaos. To conquer fire is expected, but to conquer cold, to make it stay, that's divinity-level magic. You visit one as the stars rise. It's quiet inside, and much cooler than outside. You lean over the edge of the central pit, and a chill rises to your cheeks. There's something almost holy about it, the hush, the weight of stored winter. You realize these aren't just storage units. They're shrines to control, to order, to balance. And in the distance, back at your borrowed chamber, the dream basin waits, filled with water ice and crushed mint leaves. You let your hand hover above it, feel the cold dance up your skin, and finally lie back. The bed isn't soft, but it's deliberate. A slab of stone covered in layered fabric and pressed reeds. Your head rests on a leather bolster, and above a slow curl of incense fogs the corners of the ceiling. There are no gods in the room, but there are echoes. Stories passed down by the sleepy-eyed and the sugar-toothed. A merchant once swore he dreamed of Ahura Mazda himself after licking honey ice too fast. Another claimed a sorbet cured his son's night terrors. Were they exaggerating? Probably. Are you going to risk missing out? Absolutely not. You fall asleep with that cold taste still lingering behind your teeth. Your dreams are a blend of mountain peaks, pomegranate trees, and flickering gold. Somewhere, a yakchal releases a soft crack ice, shifting as night deepens. This, you realize, is the birthplace of cool sleep. Not just restful, but intentional. Not just passive, but precise. It won't be long before the idea spreads. People watching from the edges of the empire will carry it home. Greeks, Egyptians, eventually Romans. The obsession with manipulating cold, with sleeping deliberately, with sweet treats and sacred quiet, is infectious. And you're right here in the middle of it. Spoiled, sleepy, slightly sticky from rose syrup. You wake in a daze, the kind that doesn't quite know if it's morning, or just a dream pretending to be dawn. Your skin still carries the ghost of cold air from the night before, and the scent of crushed mint clings faintly to your fingertips. You sit up in a quiet chamber, Persian stonework beneath your palms, sunlight just barely sneaking through a narrow slit high on the wall. Somewhere nearby, a servant is already rustling about preparing a light morning draught, barley tea maybe, or goat's milk with dates. But you're still swimming through last night's dreams, so vivid, so clean, like they've been curated by a divine editor. It's no accident. You've slept in one of the Empire's dream-charged chambers, and that mint part of a carefully balanced bedtime ritual designed to cleanse cool and invite good visions. See here, in the heart of ancient Persia, sleep is both science and spirituality. And now it's about to evolve again because another region is picking up the thread and twisting it into something flamboyant. You're headed south and west now, across dusty plains and over limestone cliffs, until you arrive in what's now modern-day Egypt. And here, the relationship between sleep and cold and flavor is about to get surprisingly theatrical. Ancient Egyptians, to put it mildly, respected the night. Not just as a resting period, but as an active charged passage into another world. Death and sleep, practically siblings. The god of sleep, Seeker, often walked arm in arm with Osiris, lord of the underworld. Every night was a miniature version of the journey to the afterlife. You lay down vulnerable and still and hope to rise again with the sun. To help this rebirth process, Egyptians pulled out all the stops. You're shown to your sleeping space, which looks less like a bedroom and more like a perfumery exploded in a linen closet. Incense wafts through intricate braziers shaped like lotus flowers. Your bed frame is curved, yes curved, to align with the spine, in a way that shows someone clearly thought about ergonomics thousands of years before memory foam. And on the bedside table, a bowl of chilled tamarind sherbet, yes chilled. Because while Egypt isn't exactly known for snow, they had clever systems. Ice was imported in small quantities from mountainous regions during cooler months and stored deep underground in large clay jars often nestled with straw and wrapped in animal skins to preserve the chill. Some of it was used to cool drinks for nobility. Some of it was used to bring relief to feverish patients. And on special nights, a bit of it was mixed with fruit pulps, fermented grains, or honey, then served as a dessert so decadent it bordered on sacred. Historians still argue whether this sherbet was reserved solely for temple rituals or made its way into private households of the elite. The evidence is scarce, mostly fragments of wall carvings showing attendants fanning noblemen while offering them small, cold-looking bowls. One obscure papyrus even makes a passing reference to cooling mixtures for the pharaoh's dreams. It's vague, it's speculative, but it's also completely in character for the Egyptians who had a flair for the dramatic when it came to sleep. Take the dream books. These were massive collections of interpretations, often kept in temple libraries detailing hundreds of different dream symbols. Dream of crocodiles, trouble's coming. Dream of a cat licking your face. You're about to be blessed. Dream of eating cold fruit in the moonlight. That one's a mystery, but let's assume it's excellent news. And here's the kicker: temples offered sleep services. You could actually go to a sacred space and request a dream incubation. Think of it as checking into a divine Airbnb for the night, hoping the gods might stop by your REM cycle. You'd wash thoroughly, anoint yourself with oils, lie on special mats, and if you were particularly lucky or rich, be offered a spoonful of flavoured ice beforehand. Again, no one's saying this is straight up sorbet, but it's close. And it points to a growing realization across cultures: cooling the body before sleep works. It calms the mind, slows the pulse, and sends the brain a sleepy little signal. The heat of the day is over. You're safe. You can let go. And if you don't believe in any of the spiritual stuff, well, there's still the luxury angle. Egyptians didn't just want rest. They wanted glamorous rest. Linen sheets, cedar-scented pillows, gold-inlaid headrests that probably didn't help your neck at all, but looked amazing in profile. Everything about bedtime was curated for comfort and status, down to the bedtime snacks. One scroll, now half lost to time, includes a recipe that might be the oldest written version of fruit syrup reduction. It suggests boiling figs, dates, and honey until thick, letting the mixture cool and serving over frozen pebbles. Frozen pebbles. Some think this refers to chunks of imported ice, while others believe it could be naturally chilled stones used to simulate the cooling experience. Either way, it's a clever early version of dessert engineering. So you lie down in a room filled with distant harp music and the low murmur of water flowing through clay cooling pipes. Your belly is warm with spiced lentils, but your mouth is cool from the tamarind ice. And as you breathe in the rich aroma of sandalwood and crushed lotus petals, something in your mind shifts gears. You're floating, quiet, empty. The dreams come quickly tonight. You see long boats gliding through dark waters, their sails catching starlight. You see glowing jackals pacing at the edges of the Nile. You see your own face reflected in a silver bowl, and behind you someone laughing softly. The kind of laughter that feels like it's been waiting for you for centuries. When you wake, you're told the temple priest had the same dream. This is considered a sign of what no one's exactly sure, but everyone nods wisely and says, "You should eat the same sherbet again tonight," which sounds like the kind of advice you can absolutely get behind. From Mesopotamian lullabies to Persian dream basins to Egyptian temple suites, a pattern is beginning to emerge. Sleep isn't just survival anymore, it's being crafted. And the intersection of cooling technology, ritual intention, and sweetness, that's where things really start to get interesting. The cold, once a rare and terrifying thing, is now being harnessed to comfort the body and soothe the mind. And in the background, the idea of combining coldness, sweetness, and rest is quietly making its way west. Soon, Greek thinkers will be scribbling notes about cooling juices with snow. Roman emperors will send runners into the mountains just to bring back shaved ice for their evening orgies. Or maybe just a good night's sleep, who knows. But for now, you stretch on a bed of palm fiber linen, the sun rising gently over the pink limestone cliffs, and you think, cold dreams taste better. By now, you're probably thinking sleep can't get any fancier ice incense and divine dream resorts. You've basically been snoozing like royalty, but you haven't seen anything until you drift west past the Mediterranean's glittering blue into a civilization that doesn't just embrace sleep and dessert, they dissect it with philosophical precision. Welcome to ancient Greece. And you're not here for the togas and epics. You're here for the bedtime revolution, where thinkers start treating sleep like a sacred science and cold treats like mind medicine. You're walking now through the marble-paved courtyards of Athens, around 400 BCE, the late classical period. Philosophers argue in the shade of olive trees. Playwrights rehearse tragedies while half-dressed actors pretend to weep. And somewhere nearby, a physician scribbles something important about the four humours, while sipping what looks suspiciously like a honey slush. See, Greeks were obsessed with balance, hot versus cold, wet versus dry, sweet versus bitter. They believed health came from harmony between these elements. And when it came to sleep, they figured out quickly that cooling the body helped calm the mind. It wasn't just luxury, it was medicine. You arrive at the home of a well-respected healer, possibly someone trained in the school of Hippocrates himself. He's mixing what he calls snow wine, a blend of chilled spring water, local snow from Mount Parnitha, and a thin stream of red wine. It's not just a drink, it's a prescription. Especially for those who suffer from hot dreams, the kind filled with fighting, sweating, and waking up tangled in your own tunic. He hands you a clay cup. It's cold against your fingers, shockingly so, in the dusty evening heat. The drink inside is tart, slightly sweet, and wonderfully numbing. And as you sip, the healer explains that cooling beverages before bed help draw heat away from the stomach and calm the restless spirit. Historians still argue whether this snow wine was common among the general population or a privilege of the elite. Some fragments suggest soldiers were given watered-down versions on hot campaign nights. Others hint that ice trade routes, yes, trade routes for ice existed to bring snow from high mountains into the cities where it was stored in shaded pits or lined cisterns for later use. There's even a quirky tidbit about one Athenian festival where young boys raced to deliver snow cones, literally snow-pressed into small metal bowls to local elders as a show of speed strength and filial respect. Losers, they got warm goat's milk. The horror. Tonight your bed is surprisingly simple, a low cot with a woolen sheet and a single linen wrap. But the air is cool. Not because of fancy yak chals or imported ice blocks, but because someone thought ahead and placed a basin of chilled water by your feet. This wasn't just to cool your toes, it was believed to draw down the heat of the heart, a poetic and oddly accurate way to describe how temperature affects rest. And just before you lie down, someone presses a piece of honeyed fig ice against your wrist. Not to eat, just to hold. The sugar melts slowly, and as it does, you feel your pulse slow with it. It's a bit weird, but also weirdly comforting. Greek sleep culture wasn't just practical, it was deeply symbolic. Dreams weren't just images, they were messages from the gods, especially from Asclepius, the god of healing. Entire temples called Asclepians were devoted to sleep therapy. Pilgrims came from all over the region to lie down in sacred chambers, eat light meals, sometimes chilled or infused with herbs, and hope for a divine diagnosis in their dreams. One fringe theory even claims that the temple staff had a sort of proto-room service, a dream-evoking menu of foods designed to encourage visitations. You'd eat fennel if you wanted prophetic dreams, cold grapes if you wanted romantic ones. And if you really wanted clarity, you'd sip a thickened barley and snow mixture sludgy cold, and probably disgusting, but said to cool the liver and invite true visions. Whether any of it worked, hard to say. But it does show one thing: the Greeks were refining not just how they slept, but why they slept. You toss a little on your cot that night, not because you're uncomfortable, but because your brain is buzzing. you're starting to realize something. The Persians made sleep sacred. The Egyptians made it theatrical. But the Greeks, they made it strategic. Every choice had a reason. The shape of the room, the direction of your head, the temperature of your belly. Even the time you chose to sleep could influence which gods might visit you and what kind of dreams they'd bring. And when the Romans arrived, they took all of it and added sugar. But before we get there, you spend one last night in Athens. The cicadas are humming. The moonlight paints long shadows through the fig trees. Someone's burning lavender on a rooftop altar, and a young boy sneaks by with a bowl of snow slush for his uncle. You catch a whiff of something citrusy, maybe quince. You lie back head cradled in a carved wooden frame and think this is more than sleep. This is an event. You're not just restoring energy, you're communing with ancient forces, with elements, with dreams, and gods and cold fruit. And right before your eyes close, you remember a local proverb someone mentioned over dinner: cool, body quiet soul. And isn't that all anyone's really chasing? Your eyes flutter open to the clink of bronze goblets, the faintest aroma of roasted pine nuts, and laughter echoing from somewhere just out of sight. The sheets beneath you, woven flax soft, but slightly damp from the humid air, remind you that you've moved again, this time westward into the heart of Rome at its most golden. Not the empire of legions and conquest, but of villas and baths, and oddly enough, frozen milk and honey served between naps. Yes, welcome to Rome, where afternoon naps are practically sacred, and sleep itself has been gentrified. You stretch out on a lectus, a Roman-style lounging couch that's part bed, part recliner, part status symbol. The air smells faintly of cypress and beeswax candles. It's still early in the day, but here's the thing. Romans don't wait for nightfall to sleep. They break up their sleep. Short midday naps, long evening rests, and even dreamy little wake-up interludes, where they'd snack on chilled melon slices dipped in rose water. Your eyelids begin to lower again, but not before your host offers you something utterly absurd: snow-chilled goat's milk with shaved dates and candied lavender. It's halfway between a drink and a slushie, and it tastes like the world's fanciest bedtime story. You drink it slowly, and you realize you've landed in a culture that has taken all the earlier traditions: Persian dream, reverence; Egyptian, sensory theatrics; Greek, philosophical chill, and turned them into a lifestyle brand. The Romans loved their luxuria, and their love of sleep, it was no exception. But here's the twist: they didn't just want good sleep. They wanted controlled sleep, architected sleep. You're led through the courtyard of a domus, white marble floors, towering pillars, and a small fountain trickling in the center, likely to provide ambient white noise before they even had a name for it. In the cubicular sleeping rooms, the walls are thick and windowless to mute the noisy streets. Rich families even hired servants called nomenclators, who'd monitor the night for interruptions if someone came knocking. The sleeper wasn't to be disturbed unless it was a genuine emergency, like say an uprising or a goat loose in the atrium. Tonight you'll be sleeping in one such room, cool and completely silent thanks to clever engineering. Romans, never shy about infrastructure, had perfected underground celeria vaulted spaces beneath the house, used not just for storing wine and grain, but for preserving snow imported from the Apennines. Packed in straw and layered with sawdust, this snow could last months. And some of it saved for sorbitiones, sweet chilled drinks meant to aid digestion and encourage restful sleep. Historians still argue whether these snow-infused recipes were accessible to middle-class Romans or limited to patricians. One fresco in Pompeii suggests fruit ices were a festival treat, shared more widely, while other records describe elaborate multi-course dinners, ending in frozen desserts, eaten reclining on plush couches, while musicians played lyres nearby. Either way, the cultural link between cold sweetness and sleep was fully embraced. And of course, it wasn't just food. Romans took bath time seriously, especially before bed. The process was almost choreographed steam in the caldarium, a brisk dip in the frigidarium, yes, a cold bath, and then a rub down with scented oil. All of this before your nightly lie down, making the transition to sleep less a crash and more a descent. there's a quirky bit of Roman bedtime lore you might enjoy. In some homes, children were told tales of Somnus, the Roman god of sleep who lived in a cave surrounded by poppies and flowing rivers of forgetfulness. He was attended by little spirits called somniculosi, basically sleep sprites, who would sprinkle drowsiness through the air, using their tiny fingers and sweet herbs. If you were good, they'd make your dreams gentle. If you were naughty, well, let's just say you'd wake up tangled in your sheets and sweating like a gladiator. And if you're wondering, yes, they told adults that too. Romans adored mythology, especially when it offered excuses for feeling groggy in the morning. Tonight, after a long supper of honeyed pork and artichoke hearts, you're offered what the household calls the sleep cup. It's a mixture of Mulsum spiced wine and honey and a spoonful of chilled cream. It's heavy, rich, absolutely ridiculous, but also delicious. You sip trying not to nod off mid-gulp and lie back on your couch-turned-bed. A servant gently lowers a linen curtain to block the light from the oil lamp. As your eyes start to close, you overhear someone in the next room reading aloud from Pliny the Elder, who once suggested that those with nervous energy should place cool rose petals on their temples before sleep. Another fringe tip: tie a silver coin in a cloth and place it under your tongue. The coin supposedly distracts evil thoughts with its metallic weight. No one's tried that in centuries, and it probably tastes terrible, but it's weirdly poetic. And as if all this wasn't enough, here's the Roman cherry on top, the siesta. The original afternoon nap. This wasn't laziness, it was strategic. Romans believed the body's heat peaked in the early afternoon, making you sluggish and prone to distraction. The solution: nap it out. A short doze, maybe under a fig tree or indoors with a cold compress on your forehead, could reset your whole rhythm. In fact, it's during a siesta that you first taste a dessert that might actually be a proto-ice cream. It's called snow custard, made by whipping goat's milk with snow and honey, then folding in fig paste and chopped almonds. The texture is rough, the taste surprisingly modern. Like someone blended gelato with trail mix and forgot to smooth it out. You smile half asleep and let a little dribble down your chin. And then the dreams start. You're running barefoot through a moonlit orchard, figs bursting beneath your toes, and Somnus himself is waving at you from the hilltop, his toga made entirely of silk leaves. He tells you nothing in particular, just smiles and gestures toward a table filled with cold desserts all glowing faintly under the stars. You wake just before dawn, refreshed and a little sticky. Rome, with all its ambition and control, knew that sleep wasn't a waste of time. It was a statement, a performance even. And the colder, sweeter, and more luxurious it was, the better. And as you rise, stretch, and rinse your face with chilled lavender water, you realize this culture isn't just influencing bedtime. It's setting the blueprint for the future of frozen pleasure. You yawn, but you're already walking. The city of Rome is vanishing behind you, its marbled dreams and frozen milk trails replaced by the thundering hooves of traders' dusty roads that smell of olives and leather, and a world growing colder and quieter with every step. Now you're heading north into the dark woods and thatched huts of early medieval Europe. The candles are fewer, the ice scarcer, but sleep, it's still there, stubborn, weird, evolving. This isn't the empire anymore, it's the aftermath, and with collapse comes change. Tonight, you're bed down in a stone abbey in northern Gaul, sometime around the 9th century. Monks are humming through their twilight prayers, the air smells of damp wool and old bread and sleep. Here isn't about luxury, it's about survival and salvation. You've entered the age of segmented sleep. You lie on a simple straw mattress wrapped in scratchy linen. There's no snow milk, no fig slushies, but your host, an older monk with a kind face and hands like tree bark, offers you a warm herbal broth before bed, laced with wild chamomile and bits of fermented honeycomb. It's slightly bitter but oddly comforting. Then he explains the monastery's nightly rhythm. They don't sleep straight through the night. Instead, they break it up. A few hours of rest, a midnight vigil of prayer, then another stretch of sleep. This practice is called the first and second sleep. And it wasn't just for monks, it was surprisingly common among medieval Europeans. Historians still argue whether this dual sleep pattern was biological or cultural. Some say it was natural, a return to how our brains are wired. Others claim it arose from the church's influence, where breaking the night with spiritual activity was a way to stay virtuous and alert. Either way, it's not just a monk thing. Farmers' housewives, even nobles wrote of rising in the middle of the night to read talk, or frankly do anything but sleep. And here's the kicker, they liked it. The hours between first and second sleep, called the watching hour, were considered magical, peaceful. A time when dreams lingered and thoughts flowed like rivers through the dark. People wrote letters, lit a candle and reflected, snuck off for secret kisses, or just sat still and stared into the hearth. Tonight you wake around midnight. The abbey is silent, but for the creaking wood and a distant owl. Your breath hangs in the air like mist. It's cold. The kind of cold that seeps into your bones. You pull your blanket tighter, but a novice monk walks in and silently hands you a piece of frozen fruit wrapped in cloth. You blink. It's half a pear soaked in mead and left near the window to freeze. He gestures to nibble on it, slowly said to clear the head and sweeten the dreams. It's icy crunchy and impossibly sweet. You chew in silence, the sugar buzzing slightly in your chest. A fringe practice, some say, especially for monks who struggled with nightmares. Others believe it was a relic of older pagan customs, absorbed and sanctified by the church's small offerings of frozen fruit to ward off evil spirits or dream thieves who roamed the cold night. And in the countryside beyond the abbey, the same customs echoed. Peasants who couldn't afford firewood would sleep huddled in groups under animal skins, and some communities passed around jars of snowberry jam in winter months, slightly fermented, slightly medicinal, eaten before bed, to cool the tongue and prevent restless moaning in sleep. Was it real medicine? Maybe not. But when your roof is thatch and your toes are blue, belief is half the cure. The sensory world is different here. Gone is the perfume and marble and chatter. Now it's crackling fires, animal stink, cold porridge, and the rhythmic sound of breath. There's a sleepy beauty to it, raw and unvarnished. But don't be fooled, this period isn't all dirt and darkness. Monasteries became knowledge banks. They preserved ancient Greek texts on sleep and health, transcribing them by candlelight, while drinking diluted wine and chewing cold, dried figs. In fact, the very idea of sleep as medicine didn't vanish after Rome, it just got cloaked in incense and Latin. Tonight you drift off again after your little frozen pear snack, and your second sleep is deeper than the first. They say dreams in the second half of the night are truer, the mind less burdened. You dream of snow falling through wooden beams and a warm light beneath the floorboards. You don't question it, you just watch it fall. The next morning, the monk offers you something rare, a crumbly biscuit made with milk curd and snow-sweetened elderberries. We keep a bit of ice down in the pit, he says. Doesn't last long, but it's nice on feast days. You grin. Even here at the edge of civilization's light, someone's still hoarding ice in a hole, just to add a little sweetness to sleep. They don't call it ice cream yet. They don't even think of it that way. But the instinct, the craving for cold, for comfort, for quiet luxury, is alive and well. And the way sleep is changing, that's even more important. This is the era where sleep becomes ritual. Structured, broken, purposefully shaped. Not a passive tumble into dreams, but an active, scheduled conversation with the soul. Monks believed the devil attacked during dreams, so they slept light and watched each other. Wives whispered prayers before lying beside their husbands. Midwives tucked herbs under pillows to ward off bad spirits in children's cribs. One quirky habit. In parts of Britain, folks would place a tiny carved spoon, usually made of bone, beneath the mattress. Called a dream scoop, it was meant to carry away sour thoughts. Was it superstition? Probably. But it's no less valid than a lavender diffuser, is it? As you pack your things and prepare to leave the monk places a linen pouch in your hands. Inside is a chunk of frozen apple soaked in wine. Take it with you, he says, for your next watch. You smile. Not because it's delicious it is, but because you realize now every culture shapes sleep to match its fears, its hopes, its tools. The Persians built ice vaults. The Greeks balanced humours. The Romans gilded their naps with cream. And these humble monks, they just tried to survive the night with their souls intact. The abbey fades into a blur of stone and mist behind you. Your boots crunch over frostbitten grass as you step into the winding paths of the late medieval world. Towns are growing again. Trade is tentatively flickering to life, and in your satchel, that little pouch of frozen apple wine has started to melt, just a bit sticky now, sweetening your fingers. You're heading into the heart of the Middle Ages, where things are getting colder, louder, and frankly weirder. Welcome to the age of feudal lords, bustling market stalls, moats, minstrels, and sleep that's once again shifting shape. Tonight, you'll be staying with a middle-class family in Bruges, sometime around the 13th century. The town is brisk with winter wind, the streets slippery with slush, and above the rooftops, icy smoke trails curl from narrow chimneys like ghostly snakes. It's a far cry from Roman grandeur or monastic discipline, but the humans just as sleepy. The house is wooden 2 stories and slightly lopsided. You're ushered upstairs to a loft space that smells of wood tar, boiled onions, and dry wool. There's no mattress exactly, just layers of haycloth and sheepskin. But there's warmth, community, a soft snore nearby from someone already tucked in. Here sleep is noisy, shared, and often communal. No elegant drapery or individual rooms. People sleep together. Siblings, spouses, and sometimes strangers crammed into a single bed, often fully clothed and surrounded by the low mutter of night sounds. Creaking boards, wind howling, maybe a baby squalling downstairs. But in the midst of all this, you notice something surprisingly modern. Next to the bed is a tiny ceramic pot of something slushy and white, sprinkled with crushed juniper berries. Your host, an older woman with nimble hands and a face like dried parchment, explains that it's snow milk. But this version isn't Roman and sweet. It's curdled goat's milk, fermented with herbs, and left outside in the cold. Supposedly it calms the belly and prevents bad moon dreams. You dip a finger in. It tastes like sour yogurt with a hint of gin. Not exactly Haagen-Dazs, but hey, it's doing its job. Historians still argue whether these fermented, frozen dairy concoctions count as early ice creams or medicinal foods. Some believe they evolved from preserved milk drinks brought by Mongol traders or influenced by Moorish culinary techniques filtering through Spain and southern France. Others argue they're purely regional quirks, frostbitten accidents turned bedtime cures. You lie back the hay crunching beneath you and listen. Sleep here comes in waves. Someone coughs. Someone turns. The fire downstairs pops. It's less like a deep dive into slumber and more like floating in a crowded bath. And if you're lucky, someone sneaks you a slice of dream bread, a small roll filled with dried apple-boiled honey and tiny bits of preserved snow. Yes, snow. Stored from earlier storms in deep root cellars beneath the ground, wrapped in straw and hope. Only the wealthier homes have proper ice pits, but even commoners get creative. Some collect ice from the edges of frozen streams and use it to chill milk or keep fish longer. On especially cold nights, that ice is pressed into cheesecloth and dropped into drinks for guests, or melted just slightly and refrozen with herbs to create rustic sleep nuggets. These nuggets are true fringe trend. One noble family is rumoured to have employed a servant specifically for shaping the mini frozen balls of rosewater milk and mint to be held in the mouth before sleep. The goal? Clean breath and quiet dreams. Probably a choking hazard, but points for ambition. You wake up briefly during the night. The loft is pitch black, save for a sliver of moonlight across the floor. You hear soft humming from somewhere downstairs. Maybe a lullaby. Maybe someone trying to stay awake while nursing a child. People in this era aren't shy about their dreams. They believe strongly in dream omens, warnings from God, or glimpses of fate. A bad dream might be blamed on spoiled food, or worse, a hex. And yes, they take steps to avoid both. There's a widespread belief that eating something too sweet, too warm, or too rich before bed can invite demons into your dreams. The solution? Cool, bland, lightly fermented foods, frozen ones if possible. Cold stewed turnips, for instance. Nothing says safe dreams like a turnip popsicle, apparently. Of course, the nobility lived differently. in castles and manors, fire-lit chambers and canopy beds offer more privacy, but sleep is still broken, seasonal, and deeply affected by the chill. In winter, noble women sleep with warmed stones wrapped in linen at their feet. Men sometimes wear fur-lined nightcaps, long and pointed like cartoon gnome hats, and wake for midnight chess wine or even poetry. And yes, dessert. One preserved text mentions a concoction known as snow custard, served at the winter court of Eleanor of Aquitaine. A blend of goat's cream, mashed rose hips, and melted snow whipped together and left on the windowsill to freeze overnight. It was said to promote serenity and even romantic dreams. The leftovers served again the next morning with toast. You catch a glimpse of such luxury one night at a manor just outside the town. A servant offers you a slice of frozen plum tart, not quite ice cream, but cold, sticky, and served with a silver spoon. You take a bite. It tastes like the orchard fell asleep in a snowstorm. You fall asleep chewing, and back in your shared loft, people do their best. Some chew dried birch bark or suck on peppermint roots before bed to cool the mouth and settle the nerves. Others tie little bags of snowberries around their necks like herbal necklaces said to prevent night terrors. A few even place a thin plate of ice beneath the bed, convinced it draws the heat out of wicked dreams. None of it is proven. All of it is believed. Sleep here is survival. Adaptation. A patchwork of old customs, borrowed spices, and fading memories of Roman baths and Persian chillers. And somehow in all this soot and straw, someone is still carefully saving ice, mixing it with milk, and calling it magic. Before you leave, your host presses a small wooden cup into your hands. Inside is something strange. Half snow, half mashed pear, stirred with stale ale. For the road, she says with a wink, you'll sleep like a cat in the chimney, and as you walk out into the frost-bitten dawn, clutching your melting cup of medieval snow pudding, you realize something important: cold comforts, however rough or strange, have always followed sleep, like a loyal shadow. You're walking now, with frost clinging to your cloak, and the wooden cup from Bruges dripping onto your glove. Behind you, bells toll in the sleepy town, and ahead, a long winding road unspools through snow-dusted trees. The Middle Ages are drawing to a close. Somewhere far off the world is waking up again. Trade is booming, ships are sailing, and that ancient craving for sweet cold sleep treats. It's about to go global. Tonight, you find yourself in Venice. It's the 14th century, and the air smells like brine spice and the occasional rat. The streets are narrow, the masks are strange, and the canals, well, they're everywhere. It's winter, but in this city of masked merchants and cloaked nobles, there's no shortage of clever ways to stay cool. You're staying in the modest home of a spice trader. The stone walls hold a winter chill, and you're ushered upstairs to a room filled with silk cushions, saffron-coloured curtains, and a low bed with sheets dyed faintly blue. Your host is older, dignified, and mildly eccentric. He insists you try a dessert before bed, something imported yet personal. He brings out a tiny cup filled with a slush of sweetened almond milk, crushed ice, and a dusting of cinnamon. It's gritty, grainy, and melts as soon as it touches your tongue. But it's a revelation. You blink. He calls it sharbat. This, it turns out, is no European invention. Thanks to trade routes stretching from the Middle East to the Mediterranean, frozen desserts are drifting west again. Sharbat, originating in Persia and passed through Arabic-speaking lands, is a chilled drink or semi-frozen delight made with fruit flower essences and ice. And in Venice, it's all the rage among traders who've been to the Levant. Historians still argue whether Italian sorbetto directly descends from sharbat or simply mimicked it in spirit. What's clear is this people here are absolutely obsessed with cold sweets. Even in winter, the ice collected from the Alps, stored in insulated pits and sold in blocks to the wealthy. Some of it even comes from frozen lakes near northern towns, chopped out, carted south, and packed in straw. Imagine paying a small fortune to have snow delivered in a wooden box just so your almond slush doesn't turn into soup. You lie back on your low Venetian bed belly, buzzing from chilled almonds and cinnamon. Your host insists that cold desserts cool the humours and soften violent dreams. You don't argue. You're too full. The city outside hums with masked laughter. Carnival season is creeping in. You hear footsteps above your ceiling, music drifting down the canals, and somewhere a woman singing off-key. It's the kind of place where dreams blur into theatre and sleep never comes easy. And this is where something new begins, the personalization of sleep and food. No longer just about survival or shared tradition, now it's about luxury taste preference. One wealthy family here keeps an entire storeroom dedicated to flavored ices. Not just snow, but snow-flavored. Lavender infused, mint with honey, rosewater and fig. The cold is no longer an obstacle, it's a palate. One fringe figure, a rogue apothecary known as Brother Vito, is rumoured to sell sleep powders that must be swallowed with frozen syrup. He claims they cool the passions and tame the lion in your chest. Most likely it's ground poppy and sugar. Possibly dangerous. Still, nobles line up. You wake later that night with a dry throat. The windows cracked open. The sea breeze licks your face. You stumble downstairs and find a small dish left out for guests. Candied lemon peels tucked into a bowl of snow. It burns your mouth sweet and sour. It also wakes you up more than it puts you back to sleep. But sleep still comes eventually. And when it does, it's strange. Colourful. A dream of snow falling over gondolas of almond trees blooming in the frost of narrow alleyways, filling with sherbet-scented fog. You travel next to Florence. The Medici on the rise art is exploding, and kitchens are turning into laboratories. Here, sugar is everywhere, and ice is more than a luxury, it's a status symbol. Your host is a minor nobleman obsessed with alchemy and dessert. He serves you a scoop of what he calls crema fredda cold cream, blended with orange blossom water and sweetened with cane sugar. It's not quite ice cream, not yet, but it's dangerously close. He tells you he believes dreams are messages burned into the soul, and that cold foods seal them in wax. You're not sure what that means, but the dessert is so smooth it makes you tear up a little. Maybe from brain freeze, maybe from beauty. There's an ongoing scholarly debate about whether Italian Renaissance kitchens truly understood refrigeration science or were simply copying Eastern practices. What's agreed upon is that recipes for frozen treats using snow and saltpeter to chill creams and fruit syrups are spreading like wildfire among the elite. But the poor, they get creative. In smaller villages outside Florence, mothers serve children frozen millet porridge with honey and sage. It stiffens like ice cream, but melts fast. They call it sleep cake. It's meant to keep bellies full and dreams kind. And out in the countryside, shepherds pack snow into gourds, sprinkle it with vinegar and wild herbs, and chew on it before sleeping under the stars. Is it pleasant? No. Is it cooling? Absolutely. A quirky sleep habit born of boredom, maybe. Or possibly a way to numb the hunger. You find yourself sleeping outdoors one night, wrapped in a borrowed cloak, snowflakes peppering your hair like powdered sugar. You hold a lump of frozen grape mash in your hand, a peasant's dessert eaten cold and sticky. It makes your teeth hurt. You laugh quietly, because somehow, even here in the frozen fields outside Florence, humans are still flavouring ice and calling it comfort. Before you leave Italy, a baker's apprentice slips you a tiny scroll. A recipe. Crema fredda con limone. Freeze it on your journey, he says. It softens the storm in your head. You roll it up, tuck it into your bag. The world is changing again. The Renaissance has brought back curiosity, flavour, choice. And with it, sleep is slowly becoming something more than just unconsciousness. It's becoming art, ritual, even recreation. The old rhythms of first and second sleep still exist in villages, but among the urban elite, people are experimenting, sleeping longer in the winter, eating differently before bed, recording their dreams, sharing snow-based desserts with guests and talking about dreams like they're poetry. You're not just sleeping anymore, you're preparing to sleep, curating your rest like a painting, like a plate of frozen almonds, and all around you ice cream is on the edge of invention. You follow the Apennines north, the Renaissance, glittering behind you like a fading fresco. The road dips and climbs again, and with each footstep, Europe gets colder, stranger, and somehow more ambitious. You've stepped into the 16th century now, And sleep is no longer just a nightly necessity. It's a landscape being mapped, measured, and occasionally sprinkled with sugar. Tonight you arrive at a French chateau nestled in the Loire Valley. The air smells of pine and roasted chestnuts, and somewhere deep in the kitchens, sugar is boiling. You're led up a narrow spiral staircase to a velvet-heavy guest room, canopied bed fire, crackling windows frosted like sugar glass. A maid appears with a delicate silver tray, and with a practiced flourish, unveils a little bowl filled with what looks like snow-capped butter. It's not butter, it's a chilled custard. This is fromage glacé, and it's as close to real ice cream as you've tasted yet. Rich cream, egg yolk, sugar, and a whisper of orange zest, all mixed, chilled in a pot surrounded by salt-packed snow, then whipped into a silky snowdrift. It's cold, sweet, and shockingly smooth. You're so delighted you forget to even say thank you. The maid doesn't mind she's already left. This is no peasant slush or shepherd's gourd. This is science. Salt is the secret. Or rather, saltpeter potassium nitrate, which when mixed with ice, lowers the temperature dramatically. This technique, long known in China and the Islamic world, is finally reaching European kitchens. And the French, they're thrilled. If you can cool wine faster, why not milk? If you can freeze cream, why not flavor it? Historians still argue whether this shift toward frozen desserts in France was imported knowledge, Renaissance experimentation, or pure culinary genius born from chilly desperation. Whatever the origin, the French upper class now dines on frozen milk concoctions between courses, and sometimes even serves them before bed as a palate cleanser for dreams. And the dreams, well, they're still important. In this chateau, the lady of the house is obsessed with dream diaries. She keeps a little leather-bound journal on her nightstand where she records each night's visions and insists that what you eat before bed colors your subconscious. Sweet cream leads to light dreams, she says, while pepper leads to beasts. You nod politely, even though you definitely had some pepper on your lamb earlier. Good luck. The bedroom is heavy with perfume and firelight. Thick curtains shut out the cold, but a slice of moonlight slips through anyway. The bed is warm, but sleep isn't instant. It comes in layers like a millefeuille, slow then fast, then jumbled and strange. At one point you dream of Versailles, though it hasn't been built yet, marble fountains of frozen custard and people skating across mirrored floors. You wake with a start. Cold custard burps are real. Your journey continues to Paris, where everything is louder, smellier, and somehow more sophisticated. In the bustling kitchens of a wealthy merchant, you're offered a midnight glace frozen creme with crushed pistachio and a spritz of rose water, served in porcelain no less. The idea is that cold foods before bed tighten the pores and clarify the mind. One housemaid tells you her mistress insists on eating frozen fruit slices every night before bed, chilled apple and pear coins dusted with clove sugar. Keeps her temper sweet, the maid says with a smirk. But the real fun happens in the apothecary's shops. You duck into one to escape the wind and find rows of glass jars filled with powders, seeds, syrups, and several labeled sommeil glacé. One, a lemon balm ice infusion. Another, a poppy milk slush sold as a gentle sleep sinker. A third is simply snow mixed with valerian syrup. You ask if people actually eat these. The shopkeeper shrugs. Some eat. Some smear on chests. One man tried it in his ears. He doesn't sleep anymore. Quirky tidbit acquired. Outside Paris, in the smaller towns where peasants still sleep in shared beds and under straw-thatched roofs, the frozen trend trickles in slowly. One family you stay with creates dream ice from leftover porridge, mixing it with jam and packing it in ice-chilled tins. They call it witch butter. The kids giggle as they lick it off wooden spoons and whisper to the fireplace about their dream monsters. In fact, dream food is becoming a trend across France. Candied lavender chilled with snow is sold as a remedy for nightmares. Frozen honeycomb pieces are said to lock in good visions. Even gooseberry jam, when frozen, is rumoured to make you dream of faraway places. You try one and sure enough, your next dream involves sailing to Constantinople on a cheese boat. Coincidence, possibly. Delicious. Yes. And then there's Catherine de Medici. You hear about her long before you meet her. Married into the French crown from her Florentine childhood, She brings with her chefs recipes and allegedly early gelato secrets. While historians still debate whether she introduced ice cream to France or merely popularized it, one thing's clear: she loved cold sweets. And she insisted they be served at court events, even during winter. You're invited to one such feast. Not officially, of course. You sneak in under a borrowed cloak, looking as inconspicuous as one can while cradling a stolen pear granita. The feast is a spectacle. Ice carved into swans, frozen creams molded into castles. One dessert served in a hollowed lemon is so cold, it makes your teeth sing. Everyone's obsessed with appearance's flavor temperature, but beneath it all, there's still sleep. These noblemen and ladies might be feasting at midnight, but they'll sleep in until noon. They talk about dreams over wine. They compare visions the way one might compare hats. And they love nothing more than claiming a certain frozen syrup gave them visions of blue lions or whispers from the moon. You slip away just before dawn, crunching through frost and replaying the night's flavors in your head like a playlist. Frozen custard, honey snow, ice-swirled cream, poppy syrup slush. France is turning bedtime into theatre. You spend one last night in a small village outside Lyon. Your host, a baker's widow, offers you a modest cot and a bowl of what she calls Thor pudding. It's leftover barley, soaked in milk, frozen, just until the top is hard, then cracked and eaten slowly. Good for cold nights, she says, and warms the heart. You ask if it helps with dreams. She shrugs. Sometimes it brings back the dead. Sometimes just makes me snore. You lie awake a while, watching her cat circle the fire. You think about saltpeter snow cellars, velvet canopies, and ghostly blue lions. And just before sleep takes you, you whisper, "Sweet cream light dreams." You follow the Apennines north the Renaissance, glittering behind you like a fading fresco. The road dips and climbs again, and with each footstep, Europe gets colder, stranger, and somehow more ambitious. You've stepped into the 16th century now, and sleep is no longer just a nightly necessity. It's a landscape being mapped, measured, and occasionally sprinkled with sugar. Tonight, you arrive at a French chateau, nestled in the Loire Valley. The air smells of pine and roasted chestnuts, and somewhere deep in the kitchens, sugar is boiling. You're led up a narrow spiral staircase to a velvet-heavy guest room, canopied bed fire, crackling windows frosted like sugar glass. A maid appears with a delicate silver tray, and with a practiced flourish, unveils a little bowl filled with what looks like snow-capped butter. It's not butter, it's a chilled custard. This is fromage glacé, and it's as close to real ice cream as you've tasted yet. Rich cream, egg yolk, sugar, and a whisper of orange zest all mixed chilled in a pot, surrounded by salt-packed snow, then whipped into a silky snowdrift. It's cold, sweet, and shockingly smooth. You're so delighted you forget to even say thank you. The maid doesn't mind she's already left. This is no peasant slush or shepherd's gourd. This is science. Salt is the secret. Or rather, saltpeter potassium nitrate, which when mixed with ice lowers the temperature dramatically. This technique, long known in China and the Islamic world, is finally reaching European kitchens. And the French? They're thrilled. If you can cool wine faster, why not milk? If you can freeze cream, why not flavor it? Historians still argue whether this shift toward frozen desserts in France was imported knowledge, Renaissance experimentation, or pure culinary genius born from chilly desperation. Whatever the origin, the French upper class now dines on frozen milk concoctions between courses and sometimes even serves them before bed as a palate cleanser for dreams. And the dreams, well, they're still important. In this chateau, the lady of the house is obsessed with dream diaries. She keeps a little leather-bound journal on her nightstand where she records each night's visions and insists that what you eat before bed colors your subconscious. Sweet cream leads to light dreams, she says, while pepper leads to beasts. You nod politely, even though you definitely had some pepper on your lamb earlier. Good luck. The bedroom is heavy with perfume and firelight. Thick curtains shut out the cold, but a slice of moonlight slips through anyway. The bed is warm, but sleep isn't instant. It comes in layers like a millefeuille, slow, then fast, then jumbled and strange. At one point, you dream of Versailles, though it hasn't been built yet, marble fountains of frozen custard, and people skating across mirrored floors. You wake with a start. Cold custard burps are real. Your journey continues to Paris, where everything is louder, smellier, and somehow more sophisticated. In the bustling kitchens of a wealthy merchant, you're offered a midnight glass frozen crème with crushed pistachio and a spritz of rosewater, served in porcelain no less. The idea is that cold foods before bed tighten the pores and clarify the mind. One housemaid tells you her mistress insists on eating frozen fruit slices every night before bed, chilled apple and pear coins dusted with clove sugar. Keeps her temper sweet, the maid says with a smirk. But the real fun happens in the apothecary's shops. You duck into one to escape the wind and find rows of glass jars filled with powders, seed syrups, and several labelled sommel glacé. One a lemon balm ice infusion, another a poppy milk slush sold as a gentle sleep sinker. A third is simply snow mixed with valerian syrup. You ask if people actually eat these. The shopkeeper shrugs. Some eat, some smear on chests. One man tried it in his ears. He doesn't sleep anymore. Quirky tidbit acquired. Outside Paris, in the smaller towns where peasants still sleep in shared beds, and under straw-thatched roofs, the frozen trend trickles in slowly. One family you stay with creates dream ice from leftover porridge, mixing it with jam and packing it in ice-chilled tins. They call it witch butter. The kids giggle as they lick it off wooden spoons and whisper to the fireplace about their dream monsters. In fact, dream food is becoming a trend across France. Candied lavender, chilled with snow, is sold as a remedy for nightmares. Frozen honeycomb pieces are said to lock in good visions. Even gooseberry jam, when frozen, is rumoured to make you dream of faraway places. You try one, and sure enough, your next dream involves sailing to Constantinople on a cheese boat. Coincidence? Possibly. Delicious? Yes. And then there's Catherine de' Medici. You hear about her long before you meet her. Married into the French crown from her Florentine childhood, she brings with her chef's recipes and allegedly early gelato secrets. While historians still debate whether she introduced ice cream to France or merely popularized it, one thing's clear: she loved cold sweets. And she insisted they be served at court events even during winter. You're invited to one such feast. Not officially, of course. You sneak in under a borrowed cloak, looking as inconspicuous as one can, while cradling a stolen pear granita. The feast is a spectacle. Ice carved into swans, frozen creams moulded into castles. One dessert served in a hollowed lemon is so cold it makes your teeth sing. Everyone's obsessed with appearances, flavour, temperature. But beneath it all, there's still sleep. These noblemen and ladies might be feasting at midnight, but they'll sleep in until noon. They talk about dreams over wine. They compare visions the way one might compare hats. And they love nothing more than claiming a certain frozen syrup gave them visions of blue lions or whispers from the moon. You slip away just before dawn, crunching through frost and replaying the night's flavours in your head like a playlist. Frozen custard, honey snow, ice-swirled cream, poppy syrup slush. France is turning bedtime into theatre. You spend one last night in a small village outside Lyon. Your host, a baker's widow, offers you a modest cot and a bowl of what she calls Thor pudding. It's leftover barley soaked in milk, frozen just until the top is hard, then cracked and eaten slowly. Good for cold nights, she says, and warms the heart. You ask if it helps with dreams. She shrugs. Sometimes it brings back the dead. Sometimes just makes me snore. You lie awake a while, watching her cats circle the fire. You think about saltpeter snow cellars, velvet canopies, and ghostly blue lions. And just before sleep takes you, you whisper, sweet cream light dreams. You step out into the cold again, and this time, your boots crunch against cobblestones covered in frost. England awaits. Not Shakespeare's England, or the night-filled myths. This is post-Civil War England, where the Restoration hums in the background like a far-off harpsichord. And the upper classes are rediscovering how to eat, drink, sleep, and entertain with proper gusto. And surprise ice cream is now part of the fun. You arrive in London just as the fog rolls in thick and soupy. The city smells of coal fires, roasted chestnuts, and the occasional unfortunate alley. But your destination is much fancier than the gutters tonight. You're staying at a London townhouse, owned by a friend of someone with powdered wigs and sugar money. Inside the world is entirely different. Velvet drapes, crystal chandeliers, beds so large they seem designed for operas. You're shown to your room by a footman who offers you a frosted cordial for the evening. It's creamy cold and lightly flavoured with orange blossom and caraway. You drink it too quickly and immediately regret the brain freeze. He smiles. Good for the humours, sir. Chills the spleen, warms the dreams. You lie in bed with your hands folded neatly over your stomach and wonder exactly what a chilled spleen is supposed to feel like. The English have started taking notes from the Italians, the French, and most recently, the Dutch. Charles II, restored to the throne after all the Puritan gloom of Cromwell, brings with him a court full of indulgence, French fashion, and frozen desserts. One banquet at Whitehall is whispered about across all of London, a royal table, where icy cream was served in silver shells dusted with rose sugar. The king himself was seen taking a spoonful and smiling. That was enough. Ice cream became desirable, mysterious, and very, very elite. You managed to sneak into a smaller gathering at a noble's house in Westminster. By now, you've perfected the art of walking in like you belong. The hostess proudly presents a dessert called snow, made from whipped cream, egg white, and orange water chilled in a salted pail. It's not exactly modern ice cream. It's more like a fluffy, chilled mousse, but it's cold sweet and beautifully perfumed. She serves it in crystal goblets with crushed violets on top. And you notice something odd. Guests keep talking about how they slept the night before. One man claims his dreams have never been cleaner since he started taking a spoon of snow before bed. Another says it helps clear the lungs and calm the nerves. The hostess laughs and claims it chills the tempers of men. Historians still argue whether this was sincere medical belief or just fashionable nonsense. But it seems like everyone wants to eat something frozen before sleeping now. Even if they don't believe in the science, they believe in the trend. You retire that night to your room with a small pot of chilled custard, a gift from your host, and a warning from the maid not to eat it too quickly unless you want to see ghosts. Good to know. The next morning, you pass through the bustling city and duck into a coffee house. These places are new and they're everywhere noisy, caffeinated and full of opinion. But one shop tucked in a quiet alley near Fleet Street is experimenting. A chalkboard outside reads iced milk with sleep syrup. Ask within. You do, of course. The shopkeeper brings out a clay pot filled with snow-chilled milk, lightly sweetened with what he calls sleep syrup. The syrup, a blend of honey, lavender and lettuce. Extract yes lettuce. Apparently, it's all the rage among the more poetic set. Puts the body at ease, he says. And if you're lucky, you'll dream of France. You drink it. You do not dream of France. You dream of a talking hedgehog who critiques your posture. Still not bad. Later that week, you hear whispers of the first official English ice house, a structure built to store winter snow for use in the summer. It's located on the grounds of Greenwich Park, part of the royal estate. You talk your way past a distracted guard and peek inside. Deep stone chambers packed with straw and blocks of ice. It's like a frozen library of winter itself. These ice houses are the future. The wealthy begin building their own. Townhouses include chilled pantries. Recipes spread. A cook named Hannah Glass will soon publish the first English cookbook with an actual recipe for ice cream. But you're still a few years too early for that. For now, the recipes are scribbled by hand, shared in whispers, and carefully guarded by kitchen staff who know how much their employers love frozen milk, flavoured with orange flour or cinnamon, or even asparagus. Yes, asparagus. You stay a few nights with an eccentric physician who insists on serving ice confections to his patients, especially the sleepless ones. His favourite is a mix of almond milk snow and crumbled barley biscuits. Thickens the dream state, he claims, and repels rats. You don't ask how those things are connected. He offers you a chilled concoction before bed poured into a goblet so fancy it could probably talk. The taste is earthy sweet and oddly comforting. That night you dream of falling gently through layers of pie crust. Maybe he's onto something. In rural England, frozen treats are less common, but the dreams still matter. One farmer's wife you stay with insists that eating cold porridge with elderflower jam before bed keeps the devil away. Another claims that sleeping with a spoonful of snow under your tongue ensures prophetic dreams. You try it. You wake up choking. Not recommended. Still, there's a folkloric thread tying sleep and cold together. Cold foods settle the blood. They anchor the soul. They push away nightmares and invite clarity. Even if it's just superstition, it spreads. Recipes for dream custards and sleep creams make their way into handwritten cookbooks shared among ladies at tea and whispered over fences. And soon, a curious English dessert begins to appear in Grander Homes ice cream, frozen in elaborate moulds. Swans, towers, tiny bed shapes, even symbolizing rest. You attend a supper where the final course is the Sleeping Beauty, a moulded vanilla cream shaped like a slumbering woman. You eat the nose. It's delicious and a little unsettling. You finish your English tour in a quiet seaside inn. The waves shush the windows. The air smells of salt and peat. Your host serves a bowl of frozen syllabub wine and cream, whipped and chilled, and insists it brings calm to a battered heart. You eat it slowly, one spoonful at a time, watching the moon rise. You lie in bed thinking about kings and clocks and sleep syrup, about powdered wigs and frozen noses. You remember that first icy bite in Persia and how far the cold has travelled. Then you whisper good for the spleen and let the syllabub dreams carry you away. You wake to the quiet murmur of waves again. But this time the sun is hotter, the air wetter, and the shadows much longer. You're not in England anymore, you've crossed an ocean, or at least your dream self has. Welcome to the early American colonies. It's the 1700s, and the cities here, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, are scrappy and half-built, smelling of wood smoke and ambition. You trudge through muddy streets, your boots squelching between oyster shells and old dreams dragged from Europe. The houses are smaller, the beds humbler, but the obsession with sleep, oh, it's still there. You stay with a printer in Philadelphia. His mattress is stuffed with corn husks, and he swears they're better for spinal alignment than feather beds. You don't quite agree, but you admire the conviction. At night, he drinks a strange brew of chilled milk, nutmeg, and rum, calling it Ben Franklin's nightcap. Whether Franklin actually endorsed such a drink is up for historical debate, but you drink it anyway. It's spicy cool and numbs the tongue just enough to make sleep feel optional. American colonists are tinkerers. They inherit sleep customs from Europe, two-phase sleep caps, bedtime prayers, but they modify them. Out in the wilderness routine bends to survival. People sleep earlier, wake with the sun, and sometimes gather around frozen rivers to harvest ice for future use. But indoors, the desire for comfort remains. In richer homes like governors' mansions or prosperous merchants' houses, ice cream begins to appear. You witness one dinner in Boston where iced cream is served in pewter bowls flavoured with blackberries and served with tiny cinnamon cakes. The guests applaud the hostess as if she's just recited Shakespeare. She beams and says, "Cool dreams tonight, I hope." Historians still argue whether these early American frozen desserts were true ice creams or just semi-solid experiments. But they existed, and they were already tied to luxury and nighttime indulgence. Recipes travel in handwritten notebooks, passed between housewives like secret codes. In the South, things get even more curious. You arrive in Williamsburg, Virginia, where summer heat hangs in the air like wet wool. Wealthy plantation owners build underground ice houses modeled after English designs, stuffing them with snow brought from the nearby Blue Ridge Mountains. Some even hire enslaved workers to cut ice from frozen ponds and haul it for miles just to chill cream for 10 minutes of rich people dessert. One evening, you attend a supper in a candlelit plantation parlour. After ham and peas and something suspiciously gelatinous, the servants bring out icy creams in delicate porcelain cups, peach vanilla and lemon flavours all faintly melting. Your host grins and says, "Helps the belly," and soothes the soul. That night before sleep, you overhear the housekeeper whispering to a young girl, "Just 1 spoon of peach cream and no nightmares, I promise." It sounds like magic. Maybe it is. The dreams in the south feel heavier. Warm air, slow-moving time. You sleep under mosquito nets and ceiling fans, listening to frogs chant and owls debate. You dream of iced peaches and velvet heat. Later, you travel up to New York, which is still half Dutch in attitude and half English in fuss. There's a growing middle class now, and with it, a hunger for refinement, including in sleep habits. You find yourself invited to a physician's home, who is also a known cold cure enthusiast. He believes in ice as medicine. He serves you chilled goat's milk with anise and tells you to sleep with a frozen rag over the forehead. Prevents bad thoughts, he claims. You try it. You wake with a frozen headache but oddly serene dreams. Noted. In print shops and taverns, the topic of sleep and frozen food pops up more often than you'd think. One pamphlet you read in Boston suggests that ice cream cools the brain for restful prayer. Another claims that eating frozen custard draws blood away from hot thoughts. Again, there's that 18th century medical logic, equal parts imagination and guesswork. And then there's George Washington. Yes, really. You attend a grand supper at a house where someone whispers that General Washington has ice cream served at Mount Vernon. The room hushes. Ice cream in this age is not just food, it's a status symbol. The mythos builds around it. Later, you sneak a peek at a recipe book listing iced pudding with citron peel and rum. You copy it down in your dream notebook like it might one day win you friends in modern times. Sleep in America is noisy horses' taverns, loud arguments, gunshots in the distance, but people crave stillness. One apothecary you visit sells sleep drops made from poppy honey and cold spring water. He claims it's best taken with a scoop of cooling dessert. His recipe: snow mixed with almond oil and maple sugar. You sip it on his porch while fireflies blink like tiny nightlights. He hums a lullaby under his breath and says something about freezing out bad spirits. You sleep on a hammock that night under stars that don't flicker. Your dreams come in bursts, broken teeth, then melting ice. Then your childhood cat explaining taxation. Classic colonial subconscious. You wake to the sound of hooves on dirt. The sun is high. You're handed a chilled cup of morning cordial made from peppermint snow water. For balance, says your host. After heavy dreams, you travel west for a while, following wagon trains and early settlers. Sleep becomes more rustic blankets, under stars, cold streams for pillows. But even here, the craving for chill lingers. One woman offers you ice butter, churned cream, kept frozen with snow, said to keep you calm all night. Another gives you a slush of vinegar snow and molasses, swearing it sets your bones for rest. Fringe, yes, but not forgotten. By now, you're seeing a pattern. Wherever there is ice or the possibility of preserving it, people begin to link it with sleep. It's not just about flavor. It's about temperature, sensation, the slow cooling of the body like a slide toward dreams. One New York pamphlet even suggests eating cold things to match the natural decline of the sun. Poetic nonsense maybe, but when you eat a snow-chilled apple slice at dusk, watching twilight fade to purple, you feel it. You get it. Your American journey ends in a small farmhouse in Pennsylvania. A Quaker family welcomes you with humility and stern pillows. No sugar, no flair. But that night, after a supper of potatoes and corn, the mother quietly brings out a bowl of ice cream plain, made from milk and maple, chilled in a wooden pail packed with the last of winter's ice. She doesn't say anything as she hands it to you. She just nods toward the window where the stars hang low and still. You eat, slowly, reverently. Then you sleep as if you've always belonged here on the edge of wilderness, and wonder held in place by dreams chilled to just the right temperature. You wake to the sound of clinking metal and the faint chuff of steam. When you sit up, you're in a new age gears, whirring soot thick in the air, the world moving faster than ever before. Welcome to the Industrial Revolution. The century has turned. The 1800s are here, and sleep is about to get weirder. Everything is faster, louder, and more complicated. You rub your eyes and find yourself inside a bustling Victorian city. Chimneys stacked like black fingers against a smoky sky, workers crowding the streets, gas lights flickering, and trains screaming through the distance like dragons on a schedule. And here you are, dragging your dream self through soot and steam, just trying to get some decent rest. Good luck with that. People sleep less now. The factories run long hours, sometimes overnight. Artificial light means the natural rhythm of day and night gets thrown into chaos. No more sleeping when the sun goes down. You work when the whistle blows. And yet the human need for calm, for quiet, for sweetness before sleep, it doesn't vanish. It just adapts. You stay in a boarding house in Manchester. Your bed is a straw tick on a wooden frame, and the walls are thin enough to hear every cough snore and late-night argument. But then a little girl offers you a spoonful of Sunday snow, a mixture of cream sugar and snow from the hills flavoured with crushed peppermint. It makes you dream of silence, she says. You don't, but it's a nice thought. One mainstream historical fact. This is the age when ice cream truly goes public. In America and England, the treat shifts from elite novelty to commercial product. The invention of insulated ice boxes and mechanical refrigeration means you don't need a royal estate to enjoy frozen milk anymore. You just need a few pennies and a bit of street luck. Ice cream parlours begin appearing in big cities. In London, you visit a glass-fronted shop with marble counters, chandeliers and soda fountains. You try a Dream Cream Float vanilla ice cream topped with lavender syrup and fizzy soda water. The girl behind the counter says it's what poets order before bed. You believe her. These parlours become places not just of indulgence, but transition. You see men in top hats and factory boys in soot-covered sleeves eating beside each other, all seeking something cool and gentle before returning to the madness outside. And here comes one of the quirky tidbits. In 1851, a Baltimore milk dealer named Jacob Fussell opens what is widely considered the first large-scale ice cream factory. He starts with excess cream and ends up building an empire. Historians still argue whether Fussell truly invented industrial ice cream or just refined it, but what's clear is that after him, frozen treats become part of everyday life. Back in London, you stay with an eccentric clockmaker who swears that the key to good sleep is timing. He eats his ice cream, always lemon, always, at 9:47 p.m. with a slice of sponge cake and a glass of mineral water. Cool the brain, warm the stomach, he says, tapping his temple. That's how you trick the body into letting go. One night you fall asleep on his parlour chaise and dream of gears turning into clouds, melting clocks, dripping over the edge of your pillow. You wake up with crumbs in your hair and the vague sensation that time is very, very sleepy. In Paris, you visit a cafe where artists gather to argue, smoke and sketch until dawn. The bohemians there order strange sorbets, cucumber and mint lavender and black tea meant to lift the mind into nocturnal clarity. You try a scoop of violet lemon ice with absinthe syrup and find yourself thinking in verse. Cold on tongue, warm in chest. Dream distilled and softly dressed. Yeah, that sort of thing. In a quieter district, you meet a woman who sells sleep creams from a pushcart. Her concoctions are made with goat milk licorice root and a touch of poppy extract. You ask her if they work. She shrugs. They don't stop the nightmares, but they make the good ones last longer. You buy two. The beds in this era vary wildly hard. Soft, damp, warm, layered with quilts, or scratchy with wool. But wherever you go, you find people creating tiny rituals. A cold compress, a spoonful of frozen custard, a sliver of peppermint ice. These are not medical prescriptions, they're acts of tenderness. In Vienna, a young composer you meet swears by snow milk, a pre-sleep drink, made from chilled cream, egg yolk, sugar and cinnamon. He claims Mozart drank something similar. Historians still argue whether that's even remotely accurate. But the placebo works. You sleep with a melody wrapped around your bones. Meanwhile, technology continues creeping into every corner of sleep. Mechanical beds, gas lamps with timers, even early experiments with artificial air cooling. In some places, ice rooms are created small spaces meant to induce better sleep during hot summers. One doctor claims sleeping in a chilled room helps prevent dream fever. In New York, ice is everywhere, cut from frozen lakes and delivered daily in massive blocks to homes and businesses. Ice cream vendors push carts through Central Park shouting flavors. You buy one called Vanilla Moon, served in a tin dish and topped with nutmeg sugar. A boy tells you it's for after supper, before sleep, and during dreams. You ask if that's the official slogan. He laughs. No, I just made it up. As you sit on a bench watching fireflies and carriages pass, the creamy cold settles into your chest like a lullaby. And then something new. You're invited to a sleep clinic in Berlin. Yes, they have those now. Researchers are beginning to ask serious questions. Why do we dream? How long should we sleep? What foods affect rest? One researcher believes ice cream resets the nervous system. He serves you vanilla honey gelato laced with valerian. You fall asleep halfway through a sentence and wake up to a full page of notes scrawled in your own dream handwriting. You can't read it. Another doctor offers you a tiny scoop of rosemary lavender ice, saying it's been shown to reduce nocturnal agitation. You sleep like a door left ajar, calm but aware. By now, cold desserts and sleep are almost a cliché. Eat sweet, sleep sweet, says a girl selling almond sherbet at a county fair. You believe her even as the lights of the Ferris wheel spin behind you like a giant dream catcher. The industrial age has its monsters grind grime endless noise, but it also has its soft edges, its late night scoops, its moments of frost glass clarity in the middle of all the metal. You end this leg of the journey in a Chicago boarding house, the wind howling outside the floorboards, creaking beneath dreams. The landlady leaves a note beside your bed. Try the cinnamon ice in the icebox. Good for the nerves. You do. It melts slowly on your tongue, cool and warm all at once. You close your eyes. The trains grow quieter. The world softens. And the clock ticks you gently into the next chapter. You wake to a quiet hum, a soft, mechanical lullaby stitched into the air. The year is now edging into the early 20th century. Electricity flickers softly in every window. The world is more awake than ever, and yet here you are, still chasing sleep and a scoop of something sweet through time. Your eyes open in a warm, tiled room. A ceiling fan rotates above you. Somewhere nearby, you hear jazz playing faintly on a phonograph. Welcome to the age of elegance, progress, and strange bedtime concoctions. Ice cream is no longer a curiosity. It's a fixture. And sleep. Well, that's becoming a battleground between the old, the new, and the electrically overstimulated. You're staying in a boarding hotel in Chicago. Downstairs, a milk bar has opened up, shiny and chrome, serving cold drinks and frozen desserts to night owls and tired factory workers. You sidle onto a stool. The soda jerk greets you like you're a regular and slides you a tall glass of night float vanilla ice cream, cherry cola, and a whisper of spearmint. Puts you down like a lullaby. He winks. He's not wrong. The 1900s bring a new obsession with bedtime remedies. Sleep tonics. Milk-based concoctions. People are blending the old beliefs milk for comfort, sugar for sweetness, with the dazzling new possibilities of refrigeration. Iceboxes are now standard in homes. Ice delivery boys whistle down the street like the bringers of dreams. You watch one haul a frozen block into a brownstone kitchen, where a grandmother is making something called sleep custard. She smiles and gives you a spoonful. It's icy rich and flavoured with cardamom and orange peel. Good for the brain, she says, tucking a doily under the dish. Better than whiskey. One mainstream historical fact. In 1904, ice cream earns its place in Americana when the ice cream cone debuts at the St. Louis World's Fair. Before this, ice cream was mostly served in dishes or wrapped in paper, but suddenly it's portable, whimsical, and delightfully messy. You buy a cone at a fairground stall, a swirl of lemon and vanilla, and wander among blinking lights and steam-powered dreams. A little boy bumps into you and says, "Don't let it drip or it'll haunt your dreams." He runs off laughing. You instinctively lick the cone before it escapes down your wrist. Historians still argue whether the ice cream cone was invented spontaneously at the fair or just popularized there. But either way, its bedtime potential is obvious. It's the food of wandering off even. One last sweet thing before you stumble towards sleep. And speaking of stumbling, nightlife is booming. Speakeasies, jazz clubs, movie theaters open late into the night. But even as urban America drowns in noise and neon, the desire for quiet, for comfort sneaks in sideways. In Harlem, you meet a singer who insists on a scoop of rum raisin ice cream before every performance. Settles the nerves, calms the ghosts, she whispers, wrapping her scarf around your wrist. Later that night, she gives you a second scoop and a blanket. Now go dream something worth keeping. Elsewhere, the health movement is growing. Doctors begin warning about sleep deprivation, linking it to nervous disorders and digestive distress. You find yourself in a wellness retreat in the Adirondacks, where everyone wears white linen and drinks cold buttermilk with lavender syrup before bed. The stomach must be pacified, a doctor intones, or the dreams will riot. Quirky, yes, but it works. You sleep for 12 hours and wake up feeling like a folded napkin. And now something less gentle. You find yourself in a military barracks in 1917. War is creeping across Europe. Soldiers share cramped quarters, rationed meals, and dreams haunted by cannon fire. But even here there is ice cream. The US Army, in its infinite wisdom, starts providing ice cream to troops as a morale booster. It's cheap, filling, and familiar. You sit with a young private who offers you a bite of his victory cream, a chalky vanilla scoop in a tin bowl. Better than rations, he says, trying to smile. Almost like Mum used to make. Historians still argue whether ice cream made a measurable impact on troop morale during World War I. But let's be honest, it didn't hurt. That night, lying in a bunk among snores and distant booms, you feel a strange calm. There's a certain safety in sugar, a sweetness that pulls you gently out of the noise. Your dreams are quieter than expected. A park, a lake, a child offering you a melting cone. Peaceful things. The war ends, and the 1920s explode with energy. The roaring 20s bring flappers champagne, and oddly an explosion of novelty frozen desserts. You visit a sleep spa in Los Angeles, where rich patrons sip cold almond milk cocktails laced with valerian and nibble on lychee sherbet before being led to silk-sheeted nap pods. One man tells you he sleeps in a refrigerated room while playing ocean sounds through a phonograph. It's the only way I get through the stock market. You nod and steal his sherbet when he nods off. Ice cream now reflects culture. Chocolate for lovers, strawberry for optimists, vanilla for purists. Everyone has a preference and everyone insists theirs is the best way to slip into dreams. You visit a couple in Boston who swear by a nightly sundae, 1 cherry 2 spoons, and the soft tick of a grandfather clock marking the edge of sleep. Fringe tidbit. In some places, particularly in more rural towns, ice cream is frozen with hand-crank machines packed in rock salt and ice. Kids take turns cranking, and adults make up bedtime stories about how every turn adds a layer of dream magic. You help churn one night, your arms aching, and the mother of the house hands you the first scoop, sleep churned. Dream approved. You grin. It's blueberry and sweet cream, and it might be the most sincere thing you've ever tasted. By now, you're noticing how ice cream, once a luxury, is becoming comfort food. Not just a fancy finale to dinner, but something that speaks to nostalgia, safety, and sleep. Even in big cities, the ritual persists. Lights off, bowl in hand. One last cold bite before bed. In New York, you tour an ice cream factory powered by steam and ambition. They're making 5,000 gallons a day, shipping it across the country in refrigerated rail cars. You ask the foreman why people love it so much. He shrugs. Maybe because it tastes like childhood. Or maybe because it's cold and we all run hot. He hands you a spoon. Coffee ice cream, silky and cool. You eat it while watching the machines hiss and churn like metallic dream beasts. As the decade closes and the world wobbles toward economic despair, you find yourself back in a small diner in Oklahoma. A woman in an apron offers you a scoop of Dust Bowl Delight corn ice cream with caramel and salt. It's humble but deeply comforting. She sets it beside a cot in the back room. Eat first. Cry if you need to. Sleep's cheaper than tears. You do sleep. And your dreams are full of laughter dust and the slow turning of an ice cream scoop dipping deep into something sweet and safe. You wake with sunlight filtering through linen curtains, dust motes dancing in the air like lazy snowflakes. It's the 1930s now, and the world is trying to catch its breath. After the chaos of the Roaring Twenties and the devastation of the Great Depression, sleep takes on new weight sometimes as escape, sometimes as survival. Ice cream too shifts. It's no longer about glamour or invention. Now it's about comfort, stability, something sweet when everything else feels bitter. You're in a tiny Kansas farmhouse. The wallpaper peels a little, but the floors are swept clean, and the bed thin, as it is, smells like lavender and starch. The family that lives here has been hit hard. Still, the mother serves you a bowl of what she calls ice milk. It's thinner than ice cream, less sugar, less fat, but still cold, still creamy, still trying. This is what dreams taste like during hard times, she says. And it is. One mainstream historical fact. During the Great Depression, ice cream sales actually increase. It's cheap, cheerful, and easy to mass produce. Companies like Dryers and Breyers refine their processes, and for just a few cents, families can afford a little bowl of hope. You walk through a corner store in Detroit and watch kids press sticky coins to the counter eyes lit up as they wait for that cold miracle in a paper cup. One boy whispers, "I always sleep better when it's vanilla." You believe him. The radio buzzes softly in the background everywhere you go. President Roosevelt promises better days while big band music floats through kitchens. You ride in a beat-up pickup truck across Texas, sharing a tub of peach sherbet with a family who lost their farm but kept their recipe book. At night, you sleep in makeshift beds, in barns, on porches, in back seats, and always someone finds a way to cool the evening. A root cellar, a block of ice, a dream wrapped in sugar. Fringe tidbit. In some rural areas, people make snow cream a mix of fresh snow, evaporated milk, and sugar. It's illegal in some towns due to health concerns, but still beloved. You help a group of kids scoop snow from their roof and mix it with vanilla extract in a coffee tin. They call it blizzard bedtime. One girl whispers, "If you eat it right, you dream of flying." You do. In New York, you meet a woman who works at an ice cream parlor by day and sings lullabies to her neighbor's kids by night. She gives you a bowl of moonlight chocolate, dark chocolate with marshmallow fluff and cinnamon. "I made it for nights when your heart hurts," she says, brushing flour off her apron. You sleep in her spare room wrapped in patchwork and cocoa warmth, the taste still lingering on your tongue. Historians still argue whether the rise in ice cream consumption during the Depression was purely about affordability, or if it tapped into something deeper, nostalgia perhaps, or emotional grounding. Whatever the reason, it sticks. Ice cream becomes a ritual. Not indulgence, not excess, just enough sweetness to remind you that the world isn't entirely broken. In Chicago, a man serves you a scoop of black walnut ice cream in a paper dish. He's lost his job, his house, nearly everything, but not his recipes. "Some nights I can't sleep unless I taste this," he says. "It's my grandma's. She used to hum gospel songs while it froze on the porch." You hum that tune later, lying on a cot in a warming center. The ice cream is long gone, but the flavor clings to your memory like a lullaby echoing through fog. Meanwhile, the science of sleep is evolving. Psychologists begin to theorize about REM cycles and subconscious symbolism. But there's still a deep cultural belief that what you eat before bed shapes how you sleep. Ice cream, with its combination of dairy and sugar, is still hailed in some circles as a calming agent, a bridge to dreams. You meet a man in Boston who eats the same scoop vanilla bean with clove every night at 9 p.m. Keeps the night demons out, he says, tapping his temple. You don't ask questions, you just eat. Electric refrigeration is becoming more common now. No more hauling ice blocks upstairs or stuffing straw in crates. People have fridges with actual freezers. And with that comes experimentation, homemade recipes, flavor-mixing freezer-set dreams. You visit a couple in Ohio who make their own sleep sherbets, fruit puree, honey, a pinch of salt. They say each flavor affects their dreams differently. Lemon makes them dream in black and white. Berry gives them colours so bright they wake up smiling. You try the melon lavender and drift off on their front porch dreaming of rain falling upward and dandelions speaking in riddles. Across the country, diners start offering late-night sundaes, drawing tired workers and drifters. You sit at one in Missouri, watching a waitress in a pink uniform slide plates down the counter. You order a midnight special chocolate ice cream with caramel drizzle and crushed pretzels. She winks. Better than sleeping pills. You believe her. This is the age of survival by routine. People rely on rituals to anchor their lives. Radio shows at 8, ice cream at 9, bed at 10. The flavours don't change much, but their meaning deepens. A scoop of Neapolitan isn't just dessert, it's a hug from the past. A reminder that sweetness still exists, even if it comes in thin slices. In Los Angeles, you visit a small studio apartment where an animator eats pistachio ice cream while storyboarding dreams for cartoons. He swears the nutty flavour helps him conjure ideas from the sleep cave inside his brain. Mickey Mouse was born in a bowl of pistachio, he claims. Historians still argue whether Disney really preferred pistachio. You don't care. The animation sketches you see dancing sheep snoring moons are dreamy enough. In the American South, you spend a night in a house with no electricity, but an abundance of tradition. A woman shows you how to make old-fashioned frozen custard in a churn cooled with creek water. She serves it with honey and nutmeg. "This is sleep magic," she whispers. Made from the last quiet breath before night comes. She's not wrong. You sleep under a mosquito net with the custard still heavy in your stomach and wake up with the taste of honey still on your tongue. In San Francisco, you end your night with a scoop of Golden Fog, a turmeric ginger ice cream sold by a street vendor outside a jazz club. He tells you it's for digesting the day. It tastes like warmth in reverse. You curl up on a borrowed couch with jazz vibrations in your bones. By now, the depression is fading. The late 30s give way to a tense new era. War is on the horizon again, but tonight, you're still in the soft glow of survival, still sipping sugar from spoons, still eating your way towards sleep. Your final stop this evening is a boarding school in Vermont. The cook, a stern woman with kind eyes, serves everyone a scoop of maple cream ice before bed. Sweet enough to remember your dreams, not so sweet you forget them. You eat slowly. The dormitory is quiet. Snow falls outside. Somewhere in the night, a lullaby hums beneath the floorboards. And you're already drifting. You stir awake beneath a pile of quilts, the taste of maple cream still ghosting your tongue. But the world outside has changed. It's colder, louder, and despite your warm belly and rested limbs, there's a tension that didn't exist before. It's the 1940s now, and sleep is rationed, just like everything else. You're on a transport ship crossing the Atlantic. The bunks are stacked 4 high. The air smells like salt oil and canned beans. Soldiers murmur in their sleep. Some pray. Others hum fragments of songs to fight the silence. Then a miracle, a crate opens and someone hands you a cup of melting ice cream. Yes, ice cream. At sea. It's chalky warm around the edges. And vanilla only in theory. But it's there. And in the middle of war, it tastes like a memory you didn't know you missed. Mainstream historical fact. During World War II, the US military made ice cream a priority morale item. They built floating ice cream factories aboard ships, massive ones. One barge could churn out 10 gallons a minute. Why? Because generals believed what mothers always knew: ice cream could soothe the soul. Even the enemy noticed. One Japanese report remarked with awe that American soldiers got ice cream in the field. What kind of country sends dairy desserts to a war zone, they wondered. You take another bite and shrug. A delicious one. Fringe tidbit. There's a theory whispered among troops that vanilla ice cream helps prevent nightmares. Keeps the brain cool, one medic says, as he passes you a second scoop behind a tent flap. Heat in the brain brings fire to the dreams. You eat it fast. You're not about to test that theory. In Europe, sleep becomes a battlefield of its own. You find yourself ducking into a bomb shelter in London during the Blitz. Children huddle with blankets and battered teddy bears. One girl clutches a paper cone of condensed milk ice cream, barely cold, barely ice cream, but precious beyond reason. "I saved it," she says, fiercely protective, for when the noise stops. You sit beside her in the dark, trading bedtime stories and licking sticky fingers. She finally closes her eyes when the bombs stop falling and the hum of distant sirens fades. In Washington, D.C., rationing is real. Sugar, cream, gasoline, everything's tight. But ice cream persists. People line up for it despite the shortages. You visit a shop that started using powdered milk and artificial sweeteners. It tastes creative. The owner shrugs. Call it Victory Vanilla. Doesn't matter if it's good. It's cold, and it's ours. You meet a nurse in Normandy who keeps a tin of mint chip hidden in her quarters. It's almost fully melted by the time she opens it. She shares it with you and two other medics, all eating in silence. Later, one of them dies. You never forget the way he smiled after that last bite. Historians still argue whether the US obsession with ice cream during WP was strategic morale or cultural comfort. Probably both. But you know this much: it followed people through fire, water, and fear. Back home, people send recipes to soldiers. Dreamsicles from home, they call them cold recipes that could be made with powdered milk and canned fruit. You try one in a field hospital. It tastes like longing, but also love. In Los Angeles, you wander through a movie studio where animators, actors, and stagehands slurp on waffle cones between takes. They film propaganda cartoons by day, but by night they make reels of dancing ice cream sundaes for fun. "We show these to the nurses," one animator says. "Make 'em laugh before bed." In Chicago, a factory runs night and day churning military rations, including cans of frozen dairy. They call it sleep chow, half joking. You sit in the corner with a welder named Rose, who eats 2 scoops every shift change. "Keeps me sane," she says, wiping her forehead. "Sugar's cheaper than therapy." And then, peace. The war ends. People spill into streets, champagne sprays, flags wave, and someone hands you a sundae piled high with real cream, real chocolate, and even a cherry. You eat it while crying. So does everyone else. Ice cream becomes celebration. Sleep becomes possible again. For some. But not all. You find yourself in a VA hospital. PTSD isn't well understood yet. Men twitch in their beds. Some scream. Some never speak. But the cafeteria serves ice cream nightly, soft, safe, gently flavored. One man only eats butter pecan. He says it reminds him of sitting on the porch with his dad pre-war. "I eat it slow," he tells you. "Keeps me in the past longer." You understand that more than you want to admit. At home, things boom. The 1950s bring optimism, suburbia, and freezers in every kitchen. Ice cream goes commercial brands, explode, flavors multiply, and the bedtime scoop becomes a suburban staple. You stay a week in a house with pink wallpaper and twin beds. Every night the mom makes banana splits for her daughters. They call it their dream bar. "No dreams without sprinkles," one whispers as she tucks in. You believe her. You even ask for a second scoop. Purely for research, of course. Back in the city, diners and drive-ins serve teenagers milkshakes under neon signs. One boy claims strawberry malt makes him dream in musicals. His girlfriend rolls her eyes. He just likes sugar before kissing. They both fall asleep in the back seat of his Chevy. The engine ticks. The radio whispers a doo-wop lullaby. It's impossibly soft. Historians still argue whether this era, the golden age of American domesticity, was truly as restful as it looked. But in this moment, you're content to let the illusion stand. The ice cream is sweet. The night is quiet. And for once, the world isn't ending. You spend a night at a sleep study clinic. Yes, even back then, they had them where a researcher feeds volunteers different ice cream flavors and records their dreams. You try 3. The result: 1 nightmare, 1 wedding, and 1 dream, where you're a scoop of chocolate chip trying to escape a waffle cone. Interpret that as you will. Back at a Midwestern summer camp, you sit around a fire with kids licking bowls of frozen custard. The counselor says, "This is how you teach them to love bedtime. Sugar stories and stars. It works." Later, you stare up at the sky belly full of cold cream and brain full of half-formed dreams. You don't know where you'll wake next, but you know it'll be sweeter than before. The war is over. The world is tired but rebuilding. Ice cream has cemented itself as part of the bedtime ritual tucked between lullabies and lamplight, somewhere just before the yawn and the drift. You two are drifting, and tomorrow will chase sleep into new decades. But tonight, you hold on to this, a scoop of something cool, a whisper of sugar on the tongue, and a deep, long breath that carries you softly into the dark. The world smells different when you wake again, brighter, sharper, a little synthetic. You're in the 1960s now, and the air hums with change. Vinyl spins somewhere in the background, a sitar trembles on the breeze, and your pillowcase has paisley on it. People are dreaming bigger, weirder, and louder than ever before. And guess what? Ice cream's changing too. You sit cross-legged in a shag-carpeted living room beside a lava lamp and a fondue set. A girl in tie-dye hands you a scoop of electric blue ice cream cotton candy, flavoured swirled with something glittery. It's called moon melt, she says, giggling. Like it's supposed to open your mind before sleep. You're not sure it opens anything, but it is cold, and it does taste like rebellion. Mainstream historical fact. In the 60s, the American food industry undergoes a psychedelic awakening. Artificial flavors, colors, and preservatives explode into popularity. Ice cream follows suit: neon colors, whipped textures, and novelty shapes. The freezer aisle becomes a science lab. Brands like Baskin-Robbins grow rapidly, introducing wild new flavors every month. 31 flavors becomes a promise of infinite bedtime adventures. Fringe tidbit. There's a commune in Northern California that claims ice cream can guide dreams. They handcraft flavors using herbs like valerian root, passion flower, and mugwort. You try one called Star Garden, a blend of rose cream and chamomile. The taste is delicate, but afterward, you dream of floating above Earth like a sleepy satellite. You sleep in a geodesic dome that night. The windows are circular. The blankets are made from hand-woven alpaca wool. Someone whispers affirmations while strumming a ukulele. Somehow it works. Meanwhile, suburban kitchens are pulsing with gadgetry. Enter the electric ice cream maker. Now families can churn dreams without breaking a sweat. You visit a cul-de-sac in New Jersey where every Friday is freeze night. Families bring over homemade mixtures, peach ginger, cola, Ripple peanut butter pretzel, and churn them while the kids watch cartoons. One dad confesses, "I started this to keep the kids busy, but I sleep better after a scoop of lemon basil than I ever did after a scotch." Historians still argue whether the explosion of home appliances in the post-war years genuinely improved quality of life, or just introduced new ways to stay busy. Either way, bedtime now includes the soft whir of a countertop freezer. You find yourself in Detroit inside a cozy bungalow where the grandmother makes lavender honey ice cream every Saturday night. Her secret nap first, then eat, makes the flavor dance. You do exactly that, pass out in a sunbeam, wake to a bowl of lavender, and fall back asleep mid-spoon. Heaven. Over in Paris, you drift through a jazz club where an experimental chef serves dream dessert flights, 4 tiny scoops meant to shape the mind before bed. One is beet cinnamon. One is tobacco vanilla. One has actual crushed poppy seed. Mildly psychoactive, the chef shrugs. You fall asleep in your booth and dream you're a trumpet made of cake. Back in the States, young people are pushing boundaries of every kind: political, cultural, culinary. You spend a night in a New York loft with art students who serve conceptual ice cream. One flavor is nostalgia, vanilla clove, a hint of attic dust. Another is tomorrow, coconut steel mint. Don't eat the red one before sleep, one of them warns. Too many spinning clocks. You nod solemnly, and then eat it anyway. Your dreams that night are a loop of melting clocks and your 3rd grade teacher tap dancing. On a college campus in Oregon, you meet a group studying the psychology of flavor. They believe ice cream can bypass your conscious mind and plant images directly into your dreams. Think about it, one says. Cream sugar emotion. It's edible memory. They're not wrong. You try a scoop of their test flavor black sesame with lime zest. You dream of a beach you've never visited and wake up crying. Elsewhere, the civil rights movement roars forward. In the deep south, you share a bowl of churned peach ice cream with a grandmother who marched in Selma. She says we didn't sleep some nights, but when we did, it was always after something sweet. Made you believe in tomorrow. That night, her granddaughter makes you cornbread ice cream. You eat it slow, thinking of feet on pavement and songs sung in unison. Historians still argue whether desserts like ice cream played any real part in political change. But anyone who's ever made peace over a shared bowl of Rocky Road knows better. You hop a plane to Tokyo, where a convenience store clerk gives you a cup of matcha mochi ice cream. Best before a nap, he advises. You sit in a park watching cherry blossoms fall like pink confetti and let the cool green cream melt slowly on your tongue. You wake up 2 hours later curled on a bench. Your dreams were of leaves and rain and flute music. No complaints. The 60s aren't just about the US. The whole world is changing. In India, you eat kesar pista ice cream, saffron and pistachio outside a temple. In Nigeria, someone hands you zobo-infused kulfi, sweet and floral and sticky. In Brazil, it's acai sorbet, deep purple and nearly humming. Each one carries its own sleep rhythm. You drift in and out of dreams across continents like a pilgrim of sugar and shut-eye, and yet not all sleep is peaceful. You spend a night with a Vietnam vet just back home who keeps a pint of butter brickle under his bed. One bite, then sleep. Most nights. He says the crunch drowns out the echoes. Later, in a protest camp, students hand out popsicle versions of their favorite flavors. One girl gives you a scoop of silence berry blackberry sage and something intangible. For dreaming without fear, she explains. You eat it as the camp hums with drums and debate. And when you sleep, your mind is finally quiet. By decade's end, sleep studies are ramping up. Brainwaves, sleep cycles, lucid dreaming all getting attention. But few understand how tightly our dreams are wrapped around the rituals of taste. You do, because you've slept with honey and mint on your breath. You've dreamed with mango and milk behind your eyelids. You've been held by ice cream as much as by blankets. In a tiny cabin in the Rockies, you taste your last 1960s scoop, huckleberry lavender, churned by a woman who believes flavors are spells. Ice cream before bed keeps the soul from drifting too far, she says. You smile and sleep sweet and still. You blink awake as if stepping out of a dream, only to find yourself deep inside another, a neon dream. It's the 1980s, baby. The decade of boomboxes, big hair and bigger flavors. Sleep optional. Ice cream mandatory. You're sitting cross-legged on a waterbed, spoon in hand, digging into a tub of rainbow sherbet. It's aggressively orange, defiantly pink, and somehow electric green. A Rubik's Cube is within reach. The glow of a VHS screen flickers nearby. Some cartoon space wizard is fighting a dragon made entirely of synthesizer riffs. Someone hands you a can of whipped cream. No explanation. You use it like a responsible adult anyway. Mainstream historical fact. The 80s ushered in a tidal wave of food innovation and indulgence. Ice cream brands competed for attention with over-the-top concoctions. Ben & Jerry's launched in Vermont and made chunky a badge of honor. Häagen-Dazs became the luxury option, while Froyo made its debut for the diet-conscious. Decadence and self-control lived side by side in every freezer aisle. You sneak a spoonful of cookie dough dynamite while wearing a sweatband. It's the snack of champions, someone jokes. You don't disagree. Fringe tidbit. A whisper campaign on late-night talk shows and teen magazines hints that eating chocolate ice cream before bed can cause vivid dreams or romantic ones, depending on the scoop size. One survey even suggests people who eat Rocky Road have more eventful dreams. No one has hard data. Everyone pretends they don't believe it. But suddenly, chocolate sales surge at slumber parties. You test the theory yourself. One night, it's a scoop of mocha fudge. You dream of flying a hoverboard across the Grand Canyon in a tuxedo made of sprinkles. Interpret that as you will. You spend an evening in a shopping mall watching teens huddle around a neon-lit food court. There's a line at the new ice cream kiosk with 64 rotating flavors. A girl with jelly shoes says, "My sleep depends on whether I get Bubblegum Galaxy or Pineapple Thunder." It's a mood thing. You nod and order both. It's the only responsible choice. Historians still argue whether the 80s obsession with novelty flavors was culinary progress or sugar-fueled chaos. But while licking a cone shaped like a dolphin tail, you decide chaos can be delicious. At a sleepover in Minneapolis, 4 kids construct a blanket fort and pass around a tub of birthday cake bash. One whispers that if you eat enough blue sprinkles, your dreams get louder. You pretend not to believe them. That night, your brain plays a full-length musical involving anthropomorphic marshmallows and a surprise dance number. You wake up humming. Elsewhere, diet culture has arrived with shoulder pads and protein bars in tow. Frozen yogurt chains boom across America. TCBY signs beam like lighthouses for the calorie conscious. You eat a swirl of fat-free strawberry with crushed pretzels and tell yourself it tastes just like ice cream. You fall asleep half convinced, but real cream still rules the night for many. In a Manhattan penthouse, you meet a stockbroker who stress eats chocolate peanut butter swirl before passing out to the glow of late-night stock tickers. My dreams are mostly numbers and regret. He mutters between bites, but the sugar helps. You nod sympathetically, reaching for another scoop. In a college dorm, psychology students conduct unofficial experiments. They track their dreams based on what ice cream they ate. Mint before bed equals calm ocean dreams, one insists. Another swears black cherry brings flashbacks from childhood. You try caramel swirl and dream you're inside your grandmother's attic, looking for something you can't name. You wake with the scent of old books in your nose. Over in Tokyo, vending machines start selling single-serve ice creams for late commuters. You watch a businessman buy one at midnight, eat it silently beneath a flickering lamp, and fall asleep on a bench with the wrapper still in his lap. You sit beside him and join in. Cookies and cream. Night train dreams. In a science lab in California, researchers are poking deeper into REM sleep and dreaming. They don't test ice cream directly, but you visit one who admits, whenever we get stuck analyzing EEGs, we grab a pint. Brain food, you know. One night, you bring them a rare pistachio saffron flavor. They decode a dream that looks suspiciously like your night in the Dome back in the 60s. Coincidence? You think not. At a roller rink in Austin, the DJ announces ice cream skate night. Everyone gets a free cone and a slow dance ticket. You choose Coconut Cloud and end up floating through the rink to a synth-pop love ballad. Later, you fall asleep in the bleachers with sticky fingers and sore calves, dreaming of neon dolphins and disco moons. It's a whole genre now, ice cream made for dreaming. Artisanal brands start adding chamomile melatonin, even valerian root. One brand boasts that it'll knock you out gently. You try a pint of dreamy vanilla sleepover. You're asleep in 12 minutes. Possibly magic, possibly placebo, 0 complaints either way. Historians still argue whether food-based sleep aids were truly effective, or just clever marketing. You're too busy snoring to weigh in. Back in suburbia, bedtime becomes a ritualized event. Parents tuck kids in with a scoop of calm after bath time. One mum calls it the modern lullaby. Vanilla with warm berries. Safe, sweet, and sedative. You stay the night and get your own bowl. You can't remember the last time you felt this safe. Before the decade ends, you visit a military base where a general insists ice cream be part of night rations. It keeps morale up, he explains. And honestly, it gives soldiers something sweet to hold on to. You nod. You've seen this before. Later, a recruit tells you the same thing in softer words. Some nights, it's the only thing that feels real. By now, you realize the line between sleep and sweetness has blurred. For some, ice cream is a dessert. For others, it's a shield, a sedative, a memory in a cone. And for you, it's a time machine. You end the decade in a quiet farmhouse in Vermont, watching the snow fall while you eat peppermint bark ice cream beside the fire. The wind howls outside. Inside you're warm. Sleep comes easily. Dreaming follows close behind. The 80s may be loud, but you found the quiet in it. One scoop at a time. There's a gentle ding, a microwave, a smartphone, and you're here. It's the 2020s, and bedtime has evolved into a battleground of habits, hacks, and hashtags. But don't worry, you're still clutching a spoon. That hasn't changed. You're lying in a minimalist bedroom, everything white grey and wood grain. The lamp glows amber to protect your melatonin. There's a white noise machine purring like a sleepy cat, and a pint of artisan sleep cream waiting on the bamboo nightstand. The flavour, blueberry chamomile with ashwagandha and magnesium. The brand's slogan, Scoop Sleep Slay. You take a bite, mainstream historical fact. In the 2020s, wellness is everywhere, including in your freezer. Ice cream is rebranded for sleep, for mood, for mindfulness. Brands tout low sugar probiotics adaptogens. Some are even laced with CBD or melatonin. Nighttime ice cream is now a product category. Grocery shelves are full of options promising more REM and fewer midnight wake-ups. You lie back watching your smart ceiling slowly dim to simulate dusk in a pine forest. You feel good, probably because of the magnesium, or the placebo, or both. Fringe tidbit. There's a growing online community dedicated to dream gourmet people who design their dreams by what they eat before bed. One forum user swears that 2 scoops of toasted coconut with nutmeg give him historical epics. Another insists a spoonful of honey lavender guarantees romantic comedies. A few even chart their dreams with flavor graphs and lucid triggers. You try a scoop of spiced banana serenade. That night you dream you're a jazz pianist on a train made of cinnamon buns. The audience is nothing but cats. Scholars still argue whether food-induced dreams are real or just suggestibility. But hey, if you're dreaming, does it really matter? At a cafe in Copenhagen, you meet a chef crafting edible lullabies. His pre-sleep ice cream flights are designed to stimulate emotional release. One is strawberry basil with tears of cardamom. Another is a cold white scoop meant to taste like silence. You cry a little, then sleep like a stone. Meanwhile, sleep science itself has advanced. EEG headbands track your brainwaves. Apps analyze your REM cycles and suggest bedtime snacks. One even pings your smartwatch and says, now would be a great time for 4 Oz of tart cherry gelato. You follow the advice. 10 minutes later, your eyelids droop, your breath slows, and your dreams begin. Elsewhere, nostalgia is driving trends. Millennials and Gen Z are reanimating childhood favorites. Pints of cereal milk swirl pop rocks in vanilla rainbow marshmallow chunks. TikTok explodes with videos of bedtime ice cream rituals. Influencers say things like, I'm not going to sleep without my scoop of cosmic crunch, like my REM depends on it. You scroll past a dozen videos of sleepy mukbangs people eating ice cream with whispery commentary and soft tapping sounds. The new lullaby mouth sounds and sprinkles. You visit a soundproofed sleep studio in New York City. It smells like sandalwood and strawberries. Participants are fed a scoop of turmeric ginger ice cream placed into floating pods and lulled to sleep by ocean sounds and harmonic frequencies tuned to dream theta. You try it. It's like napping in a warm cloud. You don't dream so much as dissolve. In a backyard in Portland, a family has reinstated Sleep Sunday Sunday. Each member builds their own bowl based on the week's mood. One kid does peach with graham cracker swirl for a dream where I'm a superhero on vacation. Another does lavender lime because it smells like grandma. That night they all sleep in tents under the stars, dreaming close and wild. You fly to Seoul where AI-powered freezers adjust your ice cream blend in real time based on facial scans and vocal tone. You look like you need a hug and some vanilla bean chai, it says politely. You accept and you sleep. Historians still argue whether modern ice cream is food or therapy. You've decided both. You find yourself in a late-night cafe in Melbourne, the menu divided into dream categories. Under adventure, there's mango lemongrass. Under healing, there's rose water and oat. You ask the barista what she eats. She shrugs. Mint chocolate. Always. My dad used to give it to me when I couldn't sleep. It works. You nod. Sometimes the most high-tech sleep aid is just a memory with sugar on top. Back in the States, bedtime snacks are under surveillance. Influencers film bedtime routines with sponsored scoops. There's even an ice cream flavor called Do Not Disturb Chocolate Blackout with valerian. You try it before curling up in a hotel room. That night, you dream of quiet forests and forgotten songs. Not all dreams are sweet, though. You meet a nurse working night shifts who eats a scoop of night shift cherry every morning before sleep. It's my closing song, she says. Keeps the day out. You share it with her in silence. It's tart rich and oddly soothing. You both fall asleep watching the sky lighten. And then there's you at home. Your bed is familiar. Your pillow is just right. You open your freezer to find a single pint waiting your favorite. Whatever that is now. You take a scoop. The flavor's not the point. The quiet is. You slip under the covers, thoughts softening. Because if you've learned anything from this long, slow swirl through time, it's this. We've always searched for comfort in sweetness. We've always wrapped our days in rituals. And sometimes the best path to sleep isn't a pill or a perfect routine or a playlist of white noise and whale calls. Sometimes it's just a spoonful of something cold, creamy and kind. So you close your eyes and you dream. You're safe now. Let your breath slow down, stretching gently into your belly. You've traveled through centuries tonight, walked barefoot through ancient Persian palaces, ducked under gas lamps in Victorian kitchens, napped in neon-lit arcades, and floated in zero-gravity pods, whispering lullabies. You've tasted dreams in the form of saffron cream molasses ripple and basil gelato. You've seen that no matter the era, the empire, the science or the superstition, people have always craved rest and sweetness and the quiet that comes after. So now let the imagery fade like mist. Let the echoes of ancient spoons tapping porcelain bowls dissolve into stillness. Let the inventions and the debates and the frozen revolutions melt down to just this a moment to exhale. Let your body sink deeper into your mattress. The story's complete. The lights are dim. The air is soft. There's nowhere to be, no flavors left to sample, no more clocks ticking behind your eyes. Only this gentle rhythm, this warm sense of weight, this peaceful stillness that comes at the end of a bedtime history. Sleep comes now as it always has, wrapped in comfort, guided by a tiny bit of ritual, a scoop of the familiar, and a whispered promise that you'll wake rested, ready, and somehow full. Sweet dreams. End of script. Sweet dreams.